2021 at 5 o'clock, with a business meeting starting at 4 p.m. via remote meeting pursuant to the Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and the governor's orders imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. No in-person attendance of the members of public will be permitted at this meeting. Town hall is closed to the public and the board members will participate in this meeting remotely. And we currently have Barbara Brennisell, Ben Fairbank, Michael Fisher, and I think that's it so far. So we do have a quorum. Michael, could you talk about the CPC need list? All right, weren't you on top of that?
Yes, absolutely. I think you should be able to see the list now, each list.
Yes, I can.
Okay, so as you know, the CPC gives out about $1 million a year to various town activities, one of which is open space. And over the past few years, the amount for open space has been reduced because we're paying off a loan that we got earlier to purchase some land. But from now on, there's a surplus so that applications for open space purchases or CR purchases are now going to be well received. And every year we have to have a CPC needs list from the Open Space Committee and from CONSCOM. It's seen as a model in the sense that it is about principles rather than specific projects. And the Open Space Committee, as I mentioned in my email, looked at this yesterday, approved unanimously the list with the exception of number 7, taking from development and because protecting from development is something that they thought perhaps might be a bit of a stretch. So protecting for limited appropriate public access of land near the ocean, bay, and ponds is the way it would stand now. We have to pass it exactly with the same language as the Open Space Committee, so that if we make amendments, it goes back to them. But it shouldn't, I don't want to in any way inhibit discussion about this. So I guess I would move that we discuss, then approve this list.
Okay. Just so everybody knows, what does CPC stand for?
The Community Preservation Committee, the Community Preservation Committee, this gets money from both the state and from a tax, a surplus, a tax on transfers of property. And it totals about $1 million a year, and it goes to historical, open space, recreation activities for the town, and also housing.
Okay, so the CPC is not state, it's local, Wellfleet?
It's
Barnstable
local
County?
Wellfleet Life Conservation Commission in the sense that it is a state body appointed locally and acting locally. And each of the 4 areas is supposed to have a representative on the CPC from that area. And you elected me some years back as the CONSCOM representative.
Very good.
And Fred Stream is the Open Space Committee representative, and we've been coordinating on this list and will continue to coordinate on things.
Do you think any of this money would ever be able to be channeled into more efficient septic systems to help out? You know, we're looking at bylaw change, so
you have to ask Mary Rogers, who's the expert and the administrator for it. It would have to fit into open space issues. The recreation department gets a lot for Baker Field and for various projects. The affordable housing has been getting about half the money over the last few years into various affordable housing funds and buy down programs and rent assistance programs. And then the Historical Society has been getting money as well for its renovation of its building and so on, so that it has to fit into these categories, and Mary can touch in with the database for the state about what would fly and what wouldn't fly.
Okay, that's good. I'm just looking ahead to all the septic systems that are likely to need to be upgraded at some point.
It's not supposed to be something that the town funds, and since the town just established this $250,000 fund, it may be questionable there. But if there were lands that we wanted to buy to keep them from development and therefore pressure on the wastewater system of the town, that would be something certainly we could do.
Okay, great. So let's see here. Vegetation, shellfishing. What kind of vegetation activities have they been doing or have been done, let's say?
I think that the Historical Commission has had public meetings that have talked about paint color and the history of townhouses. They certainly get money to have these Form Bs, which is research into old buildings in town that's then available for the public. There is also some education in the sense that there is a workshop that's sponsored, I think it's by the Cape Cod Commission, that we pay money to, so that town officials and members of committee can go and get education about how you apply for more funding for that. I think there's maybe some money going into mitigation for flooding. So it's a range of topics. It has to fit into the state mandated 4 categories. But if you had some ideas, I can certainly present them to Mary and ask for advice on how to write it up.
Okay, well, these look like a good set of needs. Does anybody else on the committee have any comments or changes that they think would be appropriate or additions?
We vote on this?
We
Yes.
haven't voted yet. We're supposed to, yeah.
Should we?
Yes, we have to.
I guess
Okay, my
Barbara's
internet
wondering if
connection-
nobody has any objections. I think everything is fine on this list.
Yeah,
But-
looks good to me. How about you, Barbara?
Yeah, I'm gonna log out because my internet connection's not stable, so I'm gonna try to come back in, but I would
Could
vote
you
yes
vote
for
before you
these.
get off?
Yes, I vote yes to accept these open space needs for the
All right.
CPC.
Okay, so prefacing
I'll
that yes
come
vote, I'll
right back
second.
in.
Okay. Okay, I'll second it. So Barbara's voted yes. Michael, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ben?
Yes.
And I also vote yes. So I
Thank
think
you
you're
very
good to
much.
go, Michael. All right, next we're gonna hear from Clyde Rousseau. I think I just saw you. Hello there. You wanted to talk about 174 Pleasant Point?
Hi.
So can
Hi.
I just chime in for 1 second, just to give you,
Yes.
a little bit of
Yes.
background here. We had received a couple of complaints about the property. And so we did go out and look, and we identified some items that shouldn't be on site. And so we spoke with Clyde, and Clyde, I asked him to come to the meeting so that he could address them with the commission and we could find a path forward. And so I think Clyde is going to present his case and what happened and what was constructed on his lot and how we're going to move forward in an amicable way. We do have an open order on Clyde's property because he is reconstructing his dwelling. He put a foundation under it. So there's been a lot of work ongoing on the site. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Clyde, to go ahead and present your situation to the commission. Thank you for coming.
Well, thank you for that introduction, Hillary. And I would just like to say I am glad I welcome the opportunity to work with you all. I'd just like to start off by saying, despite the fact that I'm being, called on the carpet here for doing things that perhaps I shouldn't have, that I very much view my intentions for my property and my understanding of what your intentions are for property such as mine as being harmonious.
Over there.
So I just wanted to say that I view this in a positive fashion. So the three items that I was that were brought to my attention that that I had undertaken that perhaps I did so incorrectly or unadvisedly or so forth. The first thing was on the letter I received, it said a buried gas tank, but my gas tank is not buried. Hillary, do you know what the issue is with my gas tank?
Hold on one second. So the propane tank is not buried. So that was probably just an inaccuracy in our letter.
Okay.
There is a gas tank, a propane tank above ground that we just need to see on the plan. It does not look like there's a pad underneath it. So it's just the propane tank.
Yeah, and so that was, as Hillary said, there's the open order of conditions, but I have done a major renovation on my home. We lifted it and put in a new foundation basement underneath it, put it back down, and then I've been remodeling it, and the pandemic has kind of like dragged things out. So unfortunately, it's taken longer to complete than I anticipated. But the gas tank, I don't know, it's been inspected. I guess I just, they've, last year, my neighbors complained about the gas tank to the building department and to the fire department. And I had both the building inspector and the fire department out to look at it. And they both ascertained that it was perfectly acceptable in all ways. So this is news to me that I perhaps don't still understand what I need to do about the gas tank or what I should have done.
What were their complaints? Your neighbors' complaints? I mean, what did they write you up someplace, or
They,
did they?
I can weigh in on that. Let's try and leave Clyde out of it because I think it's not necessary for him to weigh in on this, but a number of the neighbors did reach out to the office and lodged a whole host of complaints. Some were within our jurisdiction, some are not within our jurisdiction. And so I tried to keep the conversation focused on what we are truly concerned about. And
Okay.
so the items that I have on my list are vegetation removal on the bank, the propane tank, and the construction of sort of retaining walls on the bank. So those are the three items that are of particular concern to us as the Conservation Commission. There is a fence that went up, but we don't regulate fences so long as creatures can creep underneath them. So the fence is less of an issue for us.
So yes, I don't know what their object. I mean, there's a tank there, so I guess I don't know why they object to me having a gas tank. So
that's neither, I think that's neither here nor there. We just need to approve of the gas tank location. So we could work with possibly a jurisdictional opinion to permit that, which is the simplest of forms. And it's above ground, so it's not, it's not as though it's buried.
yeah, and as I said, it's been reviewed and signed off by the building department and the fire department.
Hillary, can you bring up a map to show us exactly where we're talking about?
Yeah. Pleasant Point. Let me not lose anything else that's open on my computer. So bear with me here.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Sure. Of course.
So, Mr. Rousseau, about the vegetation removal. What was that?
I don't know what you're referring to. That is, I mean, there was one item that I cut off a branch from a neighbor's tree that was growing, the branch was going across my property line. So I don't know if that is what this complaint is about. I don't know.
And the final thing was a retaining wall. What's
Yeah,
that?
that's a little bit more. My neighbor next to me built a series of I don't know what to call it, but it basically is like a little retaining wall across the whole front of his property, going down the bank some, and I ran into Doug on Main Street, and I was chatting him up about that, and I said, you know, I was surprised that they could do that, and Doug just kind of like replied, well, you know, we don't really regulate fences, and you know, so there's nothing wrong with that. So I guess that gave me the impression that I too could build, you know, a very small retaining walls, and that I could use mine to create a pathway down the property, the sandbank, down to the seawall at the base of my property.
So that
Okay.
is not permitted clearly. And I've talked to Clyde about that. I've also been in touch with the neighbor who I have not connected yet with on the phone. We sent the neighbor a letter. He's called back. I've called him back. So we will have that conversation with the neighbor as well, that you cannot install any type of retaining structures on the coastal bank without permission from the Conservation Commission. So in Clyde's case here, I think we do need to see that removed. And if you do want to install a set of stairs or something going down your property, then you could make a proper application before the commission for a structure like that. And our regulations do spell out what those structures can look like and how high off the ground they have to be, and, you know, so on and so forth. So the property, can y'all see the map?
Can you zoom in on that a little bit?
Yeah, I can try. I'm at 75% here. Here's 80. Here's 100. Oh, maybe I can go. Oh, yeah, I can go more.
Sure you can. I
Okay.
knew you could do it.
Okay, so
Alright.
it's parcel 113. So it's this one, and you can see it's a very small parcel. This is along the row where we have the revetment scheduled to go in over here, not on Mr. Lewis's property, but here's his right here, 113.
Okay.
Yes, and as you
Yeah.
can see, it's a very narrow lot, and the houses are right next to one another. And but anyway, getting back to the retaining wall, so I would just like to I've explained my thinking and thinking why I could do what I did. In retrospect, I realized, you know, that my thinking wasn't very good, and you know, I've made bigger mistakes in my life, and you know, my apologies. It wasn't my intention to, you know, build something knowingly improper, and yes, I will go ahead and remove what was done.
So Hillary, is it an oil tank or is it a propane tank that we're talking
It's a
about?
propane tank. It's a
Okay.
propane.
And the propane tank is what, within the 100-foot?
Yeah, yep, it's right by the edge of the road, so it's you know, outside the 50.
I see. So it sounds like the only thing that the vegetation still seems to be an open issue, but the retaining wall, we do know how to go forward on that, I think.
Yeah.
I can't imagine a propane tank being dangerous unless somebody could drive into it or something, but
No, it was permitted through the fire department and by the plumbing inspector. It just never made it back to conservation. So I
I
think, you
see.
know, it's about as far away as we could have it, you know,
right.
in our
So
jurisdiction.
We just
So-
want to make sure that the site plan has that on it. Is that,
Exactly. Yep. We want
yeah.
to approve it and make sure we have a plan showing its location. We also want the retaining structures removed. And the bank may, just looking at these pictures, the bank may need some revegetation work once you pull that retaining wall.
Is this worthy of a site visit?
Yeah, I don't see why not. I mean, he's not doing any more construction on the things we don't want him to do construction on. So
Mhm.
certainly we could have a site visit.
Maybe after the retaining wall is out to see what kind of vegetation might be needed.
right.
Sure.
I'm not sure. And the neighbor too.
And the neighbor too, yes.
Okay.
Okay, how do we, okay, since this wasn't an RDA or an NOI or how do we proceed with this, Hillary? I mean,
Well, it's a notice of violation, so I want you aware that it's going on. I want you aware that it's coming out. And I just wanted Clyde to come so we could have the discussion in an open meeting because of the complaints that came in, so that we can address it formally if anybody else from the community wanted to weigh in here, you know, now's the
Right.
opportunity. So I think we need Clyde to fill out a jurisdictional opinion form for the location of the propane tank and go ahead and remove the retaining wall structures. Let us know when it's done and we'll come for a site visit.
Don't we
sounds
want
good.
to know how he's going to remove the retaining wall and what further damage might occur? And is this a finable offense?
Well, it's always a finable offense, yes. And I think he's gonna remove it just the way it went in with a hammer and nails. There was no machinery used or anything like that. So it's just
If I
gonna
could
be,
weigh in that it wasn't completed, I engaged Dennis from Hummingbird. I don't know if you know him, landscaping, to do it. And he's the one that wanted to do, I felt like they were overly big posts. They're like 6-inch square posts that he used a post hole digger and put them in. And he started putting up some 2x12s to those, but we never backfilled against the 2x12s. And the 2x12s weren't completely installed when this was brought to my attention that perhaps
so are the posts,
Taken.
they're not cemented in, right? They're
oh
just
no,
buried in dirt, packed.
yeah, you dug a hole with the post hole digger and
Yeah.
and so I'm assuming to take them out, you just kind of dig next to it and pull it out.
Wiggle it out, yeah.
The contractor needs to be educated about doing any kind of work in conservation jurisdiction. I mean, we
Right.
find contractors as well.
so we've never heard of Hummingbird Landscaping. I can certainly seek them out and have them come to a meeting.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd hate to call them on the carpet. They're like he's a long-term Jamaican family. I think one of his sons owns the Brick House restaurant.
Okay.
But anyway, I kind
There's
of
no, yeah, I mean, we need to educate him so that this doesn't happen again. You're an innocent, you're a more or less innocent victim, even though if you looked
well,
into
I
your,
kind of feel like, to be honest, I feel like he's the innocent victim. I'm the one that told him that this was okay. So I'm taking responsibility for this situation.
and that's laudable. We just want to make sure that he knows it because we're going to start getting more strict with finding the people that should know what the story is. And that if they're out near a wetland, they have to make sure that they have to have you make sure that you're not in a AEC area or whatever.
Well, and to his credit, he did question me and in my whatever. So,
Okay.
Anyway, I'd just like to put that, I in
Yeah,
no
okay,
way
well,
hold
that's
him
good.
responsible. This is all on
Right.
me.
we're not talking about responsibility right now. We're just talking about making sure that he understands it and that
Gotcha.
he has to be more forceful with owners that that think they know what they're doing when in fact they may not. Okay, so we have a go forward plan. You're going to take out your retaining wall. You're going to let us know when that is, and then we'll take a look at the vegetation to give you recommendations on what we want for vegetation. Okay?
To revegetate the bank. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that'd be great. I kind of, my plan, if I would have gone ahead with my plan to install my walk, was to put some native plants like directly underneath where the retaining part would be. And I have plans to install an irrigation system like this next spring, early summer, to do the plantings.
Well, that's
Well,
great. We can talk about all that.
The irrigation system we'd have to look at too, because if it's underground, it's one thing. If it's just a hose and you watering, it's another thing. But if it's in our jurisdiction, even irrigation system needs to be approved.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that was my plan, to revegetate and do the irrigation, so the plants would really be allowed to thrive for the first few years, and then hopefully they'd be able to just exist. But I was hoping to do any revegetation in conjunction with either this, a path down or stairs. So I prefer to hold off on revegetating until that aspect of it can be worked out and the revegetation is a part of a bigger project.
Well, we'll determine if that's going to work out for you once we look. I mean, if
I'll leave
there's
that up to you,
places,
but that's, I'm
yeah,
expressing.
I mean, if
yeah,
there's
that-
places
that's
where there's
my-
obvious erosion or whatever that's potential, then we'll talk to you about it. Okay, so you'll let us know when you get your fence taken out. Is that correct?
Yes, certainly.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rousseau. Good luck.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate your time.
Okay, Brian Noel, you'd like to talk to us about 140 Sandpiper Hill?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Good. Yeah, I received a letter with some questions about some deck rebuilding that we had done. So I was asked to come and attend your meeting to answer any questions that you might have. I chatted pretty extensively with Doug before he left to respond to the letter. And he said, okay, but you need to talk to the committee to kind of fill them in on what they're doing. I'll take a quick minute for introduction. My name is Brian Nowell. I'm representing my mother, Barbara Nowell, who has owned the property for about 62 years now. Originally bought it from Windown Senior back in 1960. And we've had it as a family vacation home and or summer home. And then my parents have been retired there since 1985. We recently had a heating oil spill inside the cellar at the end of April that was discovered, and brought in the DEP and the fire department and state certified oil remediation people, and they were able to take care of the whole process. It was pretty extensive. I learned a lot more about oil remediation than I ever wanted to, but it's a really special spot. We wanted to retain the family estate, of course, so we did what we had to do. So we've been learning and scrambling and take care of this. Our main concern was to get the oil out and bring it back to original state. So we were able to do that. So now it's a rebuilding process. The engineers required us to take out a front part of the deck of the home in order for them to go down and dig out the oil that had contaminated the sand, which we did. So then when that was done, the sand was filled back in, we replaced the deck that was there. So I guess you guys got some notifications that we were doing some deck building there, and we didn't ask your permission. So I think that's where the concerns came in. I think the main concern was that we had expanded construction from the original size of the deck. So I wanted to start the meeting by saying that was not the case, because I know that is taboo. So we did replace a deck that was there. So I open it up to any questions. Did you guys get the pictures of the prior to and existing new deck?
I don't think we did.
No, we didn't. Leon, may I ask some questions?
Certainly, go for it.
Okay, so Mr. Noel, what size is the current deck?
It's over 900 square feet, I believe.
But you don't have the dimensions at hand.
Not exactly, no, but I certainly can supply them to the committee.
Oh, okay. Can I share my screen and make some questions?
Yes, please.
Okay, you should be seeing a plan of Chipman's Way.
Okay.
Is that available? Can you see that?
Yeah, I see it.
Okay, so this is the property we're talking about. It's the end property.
Mm-hmm.
And as you probably know, we have jurisdiction 100 feet from the top of the coastal bank. The top of the coastal bank is right here. That's the top of the scarp, which means that the entire property is within our jurisdiction.
Yep.
The issue, oh, sorry, going a little fast here. The issue that I found, here's a ortho view of it. You can see it's right at the top of the coastal bank.
Yeah.
And this is, I believe, the previous porch that you were talking about. And then
Correct.
there's another one over here,
Correct.
correct? Okay.
Yes, yep.
So the difficulty was that there was a considerable amount of erosion on the bank,
Mm-hmm.
starting from the top. It's not erosion from the bottom so much, it's from the top. And this is clearly a matter of concern because I don't know if these trees were thrown over or whether they fell over because of the erosion, but you're clearly having a lot of damage on the face of the coastal bank that it's in both of our interests to try to preserve. So one of the things that would have to be done to satisfy my concerns are to make sure that this erosion doesn't continue. So if you
Yes.
look at the kind of work that's been done on the top, here's another gully that's formed. Here's the work that's going on. This roof over the first deck is, in my view, considerably different from the roof that was there before. It's very severe timbers. Perhaps you can tell me about the plexiglass covering. It's clearly a different roof, which is affecting, to my mind, the rainfall pattern, because
Right.
it's very close to the edge.
Yeah, you're not
of the
directing
cliff.
it into a dry well.
No,
the
it's simply
runoff.
running off and then down the bank. And from the top, you can get a sense that there's quite a lot of erosion from the top going down. And this is, vegetation is getting washed away.
Or roof. What is that?
If you look at it, there's now two roofs over
Right.
both decks, both a very solid planking, big pieces of wood. And in my recollection of this area, you did not have that kind of water redirection roofs on previously. Perhaps I'm wrong, but I believe that that's a definitely change in the structure.
Yep.
Within 50 feet of the coastal bank top, which is a no-touch zone. You can't really build anything there without permission, let alone increase the size of it. So those were my concerns.
Yeah, that's pretty serious. Can you go back to the original, the orthographic that shows the original? Or is it the original before the construction?
I can try to make this bigger.
There we go.
So this looks like it's certainly not the same kind of deck
Right.
that roof that you've got there now. And then this one, it's hard to tell whether that's a solid or whether that's the deck itself, and there wasn't any roof over it at all. Perhaps Mr. Noel can tell us about that.
Sure. We were pretty careful with that to not change what was there. So I'm glad you had the aerial there. I have one a lot more specific, and I'm sorry that it didn't get to you before the meeting started. But they're called pergolas, and they actually have 2x4s on edge to partially block out the sun. So both pergolas were there, evident by your picture right there prior to, and they're the same size as what was replaced. B, there is on one part of the pergola a sheet of plexiglass over a deck table, so that in a light rain, it would shield you from that. So that is not a runoff situation that would cause any of the erosion concerns on the front of the deck. It never even reaches the hill. Number two, I want to bring to your attention that we are very also concerned with some of the erosion that has occurred over the last few years on the front of that hill. And that's going to be in our project for revegetating the hill, the top of the hill in that area. It used to be pretty extensive, but over the last 5-7 years ago, it has depleted. So that we have to go in front of you guys and get permission and recommendations. Yeah, there's a great shot. You can see on the right, it's pretty healthy, but on the left, it's definitely fallen off. So that's definitely on our schedule to get your advice on type of reconstruction to eliminate that any type of erosion. So A, I totally agree. We want to definitely correct that in the future. And B, bring your concerns that a pergola, except where the plexiglass is, allows the water to go straight through. So that's not any runoff from any roof. And originally that the pergolas are the same size that was there prior to. So I'll send some pictures to the board so they can kind of confirm what I'm saying as far as the size.
And could you also compare the type of decking that was there before and is currently there?
Sure, sure.
I think this also requires a site visit. And even though you're replacing decks that were there before,
Mhm.
that still requires a permit from us because you're doing construction in the area where we have jurisdiction. You're deconstructing and constructing. So this would have to also be an after the fact filing, I think, for work that was done without a permit.
Well,
Even though
actually,
there was an oil spill, we still need to know how this was taken apart, how it was put together.
sure. We're willing to go along with any of those. We were operating under an emergency permit.
Right,
Yeah.
but not for the deck to be reconstructed. That wasn't.
No,
an
it was to take out and replace. Now, what we did do is we went and found extensive deterioration of part of the deck that we were going to attach the new part to. And that's where we went and replaced that part too. But we did get the original plan for the removal of the deck that was required by the oil engineering remediation company. And I can get you some more information and pictures showing you to try to help answer some of these questions.
Great,
Also,
because-
Hillary, can the intern go back and do some Google Earth looking at what was there over the years and
Yeah, of course, of
sharing?
course.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll give her that job.
So we have an NOI, an after the fact NOI that needs to be filed.
Yeah.
Correct?
That's a good shot there that they had on the site plan showing the extensive size of the deck that has been there for quite a while. The deck is about 30 to 35 years old.
Yeah,
Well-
I don't have the measurements beforehand on this, the assessor's map. Officially, this deck is only 12 feet from the front of the house.
Correct.
And so if it's still 12 feet, that's perfectly fine. And we certainly appreciate your preventing oil from spilling down the front of the bank. But we didn't see the emergency order, and it certainly is an impressive size of these pergolas. So it would be good to go back, and if you have photos from before, which we haven't seen, that would be helpful.
Yeah, no, because that's the best way to show it. And they have a lot more detail than the satellite. I think you'll be impressed where they show it from. I have some from about 4 or 5 years ago, and then I have some just recently, 10 days ago. And you can see, it's like, wow, that wood is brand new, and that wood is painted the old
Right.
parade. So you can really see the difference.
Right. Well, I think that once we get your after the fact NOI and
Yep.
those pictures, and then we can do a site visit. And that's
Sure.
what it's going to take to resolve this.
Sounds fine. We're open. We've had this place for 60 years. You haven't seen us before. We really haven't had a lot of issues to go in front. So I'm kind of new to this. We want to cooperate with the commission in all their recommendations. And we want to do what's right. So we're going to be working with you in the future on this and make sure everybody's happy. And basically it's to protect the hill.
Absolutely. And I don't know if you want to come forth with a planting plan of where you're going to put the plants and the type of plants. But if you did that, it might leapfrog ahead so that when we met next, we could approve or discuss that planting plan.
That's pretty serious to us. And we've already made 2 visits to landscapers and landscaper supply to say what's normal, what will survive there, what works good. And the American beach grass, of course, is #1. And we're going to work with Crocker Nurseries, Crocker Landscaping, and come up with a plan as to what he feels would work very well. They're saying planting in the winter is best because the beach grass is in a dormant state. So we'll get that plan in front of you for approval. Is that what we do?
Yeah.
Yes, that would be part of the process. And
Okay,
if you do it all at once, that would be helpful.
great. We'll get that together too. So
All
we're
right.
working
So
on, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, you can coordinate with Hillary on the
Okay,
process, and we'll carry it forward once we have the paperwork.
great.
And if you can get those, as part of that, a planting plan, previous pictures, any information you have about the current, how was the foundation set?
Mhm.
What was the nature of the materials that you used, et cetera? Those are the things that we need to know.
Okay, I can get the pictures to you. I mean, Hillary already has them
Okay.
in her email, but the planting plan, we're presently working with the landscaper now. So I'll try to accelerate that to get it in front of you so you can look
Yeah.
at it. And we're all ears on that because you guys have more experience than we do on that. And we definitely want to stop any erosion that's going on.
Right. It's probably going to take something more than just grass, it looks like to me. You're going to need some blueberries or.
Well, in that one shot that the gentleman had from the beach looking up, you can see on the right side, it was that low, I don't know if it's a bayberry stuff.
Airberry.
Oh my God,
Airberry.
that's just
Bearberry.
fantastic. So I'd love to do a bunch of that in conjunction with the
Yeah.
beach. But I'm not an expert. I want to talk to the experts and get their advice.
And if you're establishing a path down there, that's another thing that we would need to know about.
No paths. We have an existing stairway there now. So
Mhm.
there's no paths. That eliminates. any
Okay.
stuff. So
All right.
so basically, it was take care of the oil remediation, stop any potential erosion, and then make it better than when we started.
Okay. I think we have a plan. Is everybody okay with that on the
Yes, I
commission?
think that'll be very good.
That sounds
Okay.
great.
Okay.
Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Mr. Noah.
You're welcome. I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Okay, we have a monitoring report for the Thayer property at 250 Meadow Avenue West. Is that right? Does anybody know about that?
Yep, we have Seth Wilkinson here. We have Richard here, and I'm not sure if anyone else is joining for the discussion, but we can hand it over to Seth and he can take it away. You should have some papers in your packet as well.
We did not
Not
get
for
it.
this.
We did not get any papers in our packet. No.
Okay, those were submitted and I'm sorry about that. They should have made it in. I can get them to you for the next
Well,
meeting, but you could
okay.
just, Seth can
If we can
describe.
share a
the-
screen, that would be good.
Yeah,
Sure.
I have an image from a monitoring report. If that would be helpful, I could put that up. That's okay.
All right.
All right. Bear with me just a second here. Okay, you seeing an image of some marsh plants?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. So thank you. For the record, Seth Wilkinson, Wilkinson Ecological Design. And as I'm just looking around, there are a couple of folks that were on the commission a couple of years back or a few years back, and we permitted this. So if I could, I might just give you a little bit of background because this is somewhat of an innovative salt marsh restoration project. That'd be all right?
Mhm. Fine.
I'll be brief because I know you're in a work meeting and you have a hearing coming up. This is a site 250 Meadow Ave West on Lieutenant's Island, which for about 9 or 10 years prior had a more conventional sand-filled envelope soft alternative. It wasn't performing terribly well, and that it just had to keep getting repaired and replaced on an annual or biannual basis. And the owner, Rich Thayer, was looking for something more with more longevity and that would support plants better. Fortunately, as you can see from this image, I think we have found that. So what the project involved, as just an overview, is a somewhat typical fiber roll array, which you may have seen elsewhere. So coconut fiber rolls anchored in place with some sand lift behind them, a biodegradable approach. And then to seaward, because this marsh or this beach rather area is at the southern end of Lieutenant's with a pretty contiguous revetment that runs the face, the western face of the island. And so I think as a result, the beach right here at the end of the revetment tends to fluctuate pretty considerably. Even when you get out beyond the end of this and go another 50 or 100 feet, the beach does not fluctuate nearly as much. We've seen 2, 3, 4 feet of fluctuation over the period of 1 year on this beach. And so that's very challenging for sand-filled envelopes because they're porous, and as the beach lowers and low tidal energies exchange with the envelopes, they release the sand pretty quickly, and it's a high maintenance and hard to get plants established. So seeing that there's still remnant peat beds just to seaward of this project, we thought that this was a good location for this new sort of DEP approved approach for living shorelines in Massachusetts. There are some smaller cobblestones that help to ballast the system because this is a very high velocity zone. And then we established sort of a simulated peat growing medium with organic compost and loose coir fibers that are sort of encapsulated in a biodegradable casing, which is meant to break down over a few years while those plants' roots establish and colonize the interstitial spaces within the growing medium and the cobbles. And so as you can, I think there's a few images in the latest monitoring report. This is the third monitoring report. And because this was sort of an innovative project, in the order of conditions, you had basically laid out a process for approval of a certificate of compliance. And sort of the first or second step, I think the first step was completing 3 monitoring reports. And the second step was coming before you sort of informally to present the project to you. And then the third step, which we would like to, with your blessing after this meeting, go forward with would be to formally request a certificate of compliance. So that's a mouthful. And I'm happy to answer any questions. I guess the only other thing I would say is, the first year of these projects is always challenging in high velocity areas. We did have to replant. We worked with Hillary and Natural Heritage last spring because we kept trying to get out and make some repairs. These interventions are most fragile in their first couple of years. And so we went through that process, and I'm very happy to report that the growing was great all summer. The rain helped, and the marsh has really taken very, very nicely. We're very happy. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions the commission.
How long ago did you put this in?
It was started in 19. It was sort of phased in from fall, winter, and spring.
Mhm.
And so we've been through a couple growing seasons now, completely through.
The plants along the top, were they just replanted this year before you took the picture, or?
So in the image, right, what you're looking at, so there was some replanting sort of between the fiber rolls. If you can see my cursor, so there's the actual fiber rolls, and then some of these plants have been there from the beginning, and this one I think was replanted. And so the fiber rolls do tend to take longer to colonize. Actually, I can show you some other images here that show the area above the fiber rolls a little bit better. So this area was all planted as well. The middle has come in much quicker than the edges, but it's well vegetated elsewhere, everywhere on the work area. The fibrils are covered annually. It is such a high energy area that sand has had to be replenished each late winter, early spring since it's been constructed, and I think that'll be pretty regular at this site for some time, particularly given where it is at the end of a very long revetment. And so as a result, the plants take a little bit longer to colonize. They're moving down and up into the fibrils, but that's a pretty dynamic area. It takes a lot of waves. But we have had, we've got 10, 15-year-old interventions that are really well vegetated now.
Where are the revetment, the solid revetments? To the left or to the right of this picture?
To the left of this frame. So that would be north,
Okay.
just for orientation.
Okay.
We're looking
Right.
east.
We're looking east here, right?
We're looking east, yeah. Cape Cod Bay is to our back.
Right.
Just another image. So that you can't really see it. We put a seasonal fence in here that'll be taken up for the winter, just to keep the rack line out of that section. The interfaces with the revetment is a little bit lower, but the revetment's just behind that fence there on the neighbor's property.
Any questions from the commission?
Well, it looks like it's working to me.
Yeah, it looks like it's a pretty successful endeavor.
We're very happy. It's not been without a lot of work and attention, but this is the highest energy system that we've put these in. I think it's the 5th or 6th that have gone in around Cape Cod from Falmouth to Wellfleet. This is the furthest outer Cape, and it's the highest energy site. So we're excited. We may be coming to talk to you about using it as an alternative to a hard structure at another site in Wellfleet. I can't swear by that, but we've got an engineer who's interested in it, so I hope to see you, in the coming
Well,
months.
we'd welcome less intrusive solutions to this problem. It looks good to me. It looks like I just wonder if you stopped would it thrive on its own if you stopped replanting? Do you think? Or is that going to require maintenance?
I think we have the critical mass of plants. We would expect the commission to require annual nourishment. And I think it's in the project best interest to do that, as an ongoing condition. I think that was even in the original application. So I think that will be more important over time. The marsh should help to attenuate some of that sand as it flows off of the bank. It's simulating that sediment contribution function of coastal banks. So it is supposed to move off the bank. And I think over time it should move off at a slower rate if sea level rise isn't too bad, because you should see some accretion over time as we do from eroding banks on the beaches.
Barbara?
Yeah, I hate to suggest more site visits, but I think this would be an educational one for us. I think we should get out there and take a look at it. Because this might be a solution for other sites where we're grappling with permitting different kinds of structures. I think we should go out and take a look, or maybe not as a formal site visit, but I would encourage all the commissioners to not take a nice walk out there and take a look.
I would as well, and I would just note that there are going to be some significant construction of the road and the bridge coming up in Lieutenant's Island you may be aware of. So I don't believe there's even going to be walking access, which is a long walk if you walk to this site from the mainland. But you've got all of this week and next week, and we would welcome you to see it. And if there's no hesitation from the board, our next step would be to formally request a certificate of compliance. So you have good reason to go out as well.
Well, I don't think there's anything else we can do today other than when we would like to take a look at it. And when you come forward with your request for a certificate of completion, we can make sure that we're all on the same page as far as what's happened.
Sounds like a great plan. Appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Seth.
Thank you for coming, Seth.
My pleasure. Nice to see you all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
And Leon, I have
Yes.
one jurisdictional opinion,
Okay,
a pretty simple one. It's for 105 Catboat Road. And they need to replace some blocked risers on the septic tank and the pump chamber and replace the failed pump.
Okay, so who's been out there?
I've
Anybody?
been out there.
Okay. So I would trust Hillary's opinion about this one because I haven't been out there and I don't know what's involved.
It's just digging up the covers a little bit and replacing components that are in the ground. So it's the bare minimum that's needed to keep the system functioning as we want it to. So
okay,
If there are no questions, I'll approve I'll move to approve the JO.
Do I have a
Second, Michael?
Okay, Benjamin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Marty?
I think
Is that
that was a
yes?
yes.
Okay.
He's muted, but that was a
You're
yes.
muted. That's all right. Barbara
Yes.
and Michael
Yes.
and me, yes. I guess that's all of us. So,
okay, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of you.
Quorum, yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
we have an abundance here.
Minutes.
Yes. The minutes I saw look pretty good. The one, I guess, for the last meeting, September 15th.
Yes. 9:15. And Barbara made some changes and I made some changes. So I think it's been looked over.
Yep, I looked at it, looked good to me. I move that we accept the meeting minutes as edited for September 15th, 2021.
Second by Barbara.
Okay, Benjamin,
Yes.
Marty? Okay, that's a yes. Barbara
Yes.
and Michael,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. So that's done. Do we have any other business that we want to attend to in the
The
next 3
only other
minutes?
thing I want to bring to everyone's attention is that we did have an oil spill 2 weeks ago at the box lunch on Briar Lane. There's a culvert that runs under Briar Lane right next to the box lunch. There's some ditching that runs alongside the property there. And so it is under the auspices of Mass DEP right now. There's a licensed site professional on site working the remediation. When I went back out there last Friday, the site was a mess. And so I called the licensed site professional and asked that they come and tidy up the site because we had had all that rain. There was a bunch of standing water. Vegetation is dewatering. The site's a mess. So I just want you to be aware that that's going on. We should be seeing an emergency certification for some digging and other remediation work out there coming soon.
Was
So,
that heating oil?
yes, yep.
Yeah.
And
And
then
is-
you sent us something about emergency road repair on Lieutenant Island Road as well.
Yep, that's going on too. The DPW has had a washout, so they're gonna go ahead and put a berm up there and keep the rainwater on the road and repair the road.
Okay.
And well, I'll ask you something else offline about another DPW
Okay,
repair that I saw occurring.
okay.
Yeah.
Was it Keller's Corner?
No, no.
Okay, because they've put fresh sand there too. That was under another certification.
No, this was
Okay.
on someplace else.
Okay,
And
the-
while we're on the DPW, they're going to be digging up some lobster lines and fishing gear out on the Atlantic side in a couple weeks. So
Why?
there's fishing line and
A ghost gear and
Yeah,
stuff?
yep,
Yeah, okay,
yep.
all right.
I guess some of the lifeguards or surfers had began to pull it out, but it's too deep. So the DPW is going to go and just snag that out.
So
I know
the,
that you all met Audrey this morning. She's lovely.
yeah, yeah. She's
could
got to
we-
learn
could
the geography though, it seems like.
Well, we
we
put her
I
in
counted
charge.
3
I-
returns.
Listen, I was just letting her direct us and, that's fine because next time I'll make her drive and direct. So
Oh, hey, now you're talking. I don't think I'll follow or ride along with that one. I'll just.
I
use
would-
it.
I don't recommend it, although she has big truck training.
I was always Doug's navigator.
Yeah. Well, we're
You
gonna
did a
train
good job
up
navigating
Audrey
me.
to be chief navigator and driver. So
Okay, I move that, unless we have something important to discuss, we have to move on to the hearing. So I move that we adjourn the business meeting.
Second, Michael?
Second,
Benjamin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Marty? Okay, Marty. Just give a thumbs up. That's, and Barbara?
yes.
And
Marty can't turn
Michael?
his audio on.
Try just hitting the space bar, Marty. No
Mhm.
space bar?
Can't do it.
That's
Okay.
weird.
There you
Oh,
go.
there you go.
There you go,
Yeah,
Marty.
Okay,
You're there.
Right.
All
Now
right. Okay, so.
I vote
think
yes.
my-
You
And I
left me
vote
out.
yes too. So the business meeting is now adjourned. We will now do the public hearing. Pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 38, paragraphs 18 to 25, as amended by the Chapter 28 of the Acts of 2009, the Wetlands Protection Act, and the Wellfleet Environmental Protection Bylaw of July 1986 and its regulations of January 2000, the Wellfleet Conservation Commission will hold public hearings on Wednesday, October 6, 2021 at 5 p.m. with a business meeting starting at 4 p.m. via remote meeting. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and the governor's orders imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, no in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted at this meeting. Town hall is closed to the public and the board members will participate in this meeting remotely. So currently we have Marty Murphy, Benjamin Fairbank, Michael Fisher, and I thought we had Barbara, but Barbara's still here too, and Leon Shreves. So we have a quorum. The first thing is the town of Wellfleet.
So we, after discussion with town council, we need to amend our Wellfleet environmental protection regulations relative to our ecological restoration projects. I think you all have the language and I'm just going to pull it up and share the screen so we can all be looking at the same language. So this would replace what we have currently in there.
What pages are the changes on?
It's on page 8 of what was
8.
in the packet.
Okay, so I'm
thanks.
just gonna share my screen and just let me know if you see me scrolling because that's what I'm hopeful of. Okay. Can you see scrolling or?
It's
Yes.
scrolling.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay. So obviously I changed the date on the front page. And so this would apply to all ecological restoration projects. We can use this for aquaculture projects, other salt marsh restorations, Herring River, Mayo Creek, House Pond, anything that falls under the ecological restoration definition, which I think we had the definition in our definitions section already. So what it essentially says is that when an ecological restoration project comes before us, we're not going to apply our local regulations unless, of course, we don't feel it qualifies as an ecological restoration project. If we decide it does apply as an ecological restoration project, then we just defer to the Mass DEP Wetlands Protection Act requirements for ecological restoration projects. And the reason that we made this change initially is because the process that they had spelled out in the Wetlands Protection Act is very intense, and they have to go through so many sets of performance standards and requirements before they actually qualify as an ecological restoration project, that it just doesn't make sense for us to hold them to the standards in our regulations and the Wetlands Protection Act, because it's rather duplicative. So the decision that we make under the regulation is just whether it's an ecological restoration project or not. And then we review the project under the Wetlands Protection Act only and not our local regulation. So that's what this language change is saying.
I ask 2 questions then.
Yes.
One, will you correct the spelling of notwithstanding?
Oh, yes. Yes, of course.
Not.
Notwithstanding.
Okay.
How's that?
Yeah, that's great. The second more serious thing is one of the issues with large wetland restoration projects is that so many of the commissioners have conflicts of interests. Would this in any way ameliorate that issue?
No,
No, I don't think so.
no,
And
it doesn't.
actually, yeah, it's just you and me, Michael. We have the conflicts.
And
John
Cumberland.
Cumberland too.
Oh, he does?
He's in a butter.
Oh,
Which leaves only the 3 others.
right.
That would be me
Yes,
and Benjamin
and Marty.
and Marty.
Yes.
And we
Now-
may have another member. Well, gosh. So the thought is that Herring River is going to actually file their notice of intent for a hearing in November. So we gotta hit the pavement and find us a new member quick.
Or else one of us signs that
Yeah,
non-conflict of interest form.
Disclosure of
yeah,
conflict of
Whatever,
interest,
whatever it
which Leanne always likes it when I do that.
is. Yeah, you should do it, Michael, because I consulted the lawyers already and they said I really didn't have a conflict of interest, but it could be perceived. as
Exactly.
It's
And I'm in the same
perception.
situation.
Do we have to vote on this?
yes, it would be
Claire?
ideal if you could vote on it and then we could put out notice and change our regulations again. So I just wanted to scroll up to the definition because Marty, I don't know if you're too familiar with ecological restoration projects or not, but the definition is on the screen. I don't think I need to read it out to you, but and I think I also think I forwarded around an email from Christine Odiaga that went to Emily B because Truro made the same change, which
Mhm.
explained it pretty well also. So,
Yes.
so the changes before you, a vote would be great so we can go ahead and get this printed and posted and stamped by the town clerk.
Does anyone have any comments or questions from the commission? Okay, I move that we accept these changes to the Wellfleet Environmental Protection regulations.
Second,
Second.
Barbara.
All right, Marty? How do you
Yes.
vote? I vote yes. Benjamin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Barbara
Yes.
and Michael?
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
we have done deal on that. All right, next we're going to talk about to Sexton, the Cook Family Trust, about 420 Lecant Hollow Road. Is there somebody here to represent that?
Yep, I did call Kevin after our last meeting and request that he come to talk to us about his proposal, and I do
Right,
see. him
I
here,
see that
so
he's online, so.
I'm gonna
Mr.
go ahead and
Sexton,
ask
if you
him to
can-
unmute and see that he can talk with us.
Hello.
We hear you. And the dog.
Hi. I'm here.
Baxter.
I am back.
Okay, go ahead, Kevin, take it away.
So we had filed for a notice of intent in 2015. That expired. This is to move 4 cottages that are right on the edge of the coastal bank. It expired in 2018, so we reapplied for another notice of intent and got another order of conditions, and that's what I would like to extend here. One of the cottages is the deck's about 7 feet from the top of the dune. The house is about 15 feet. That's the closest one. I'll answer any questions you have.
Why wasn't it, how come you didn't get it done within 3 years?
6
Well,
years.
there hasn't been much erosion in the last couple of years.
You went through the expense and took our time to get permission to do that, and then you just decided that it didn't need it?
I can't predict coastal erosion. I mean, it could
You
need,
don't have to, if, okay.
would certainly could happen this year. You have many years of nothing and then 1 year of major erosion. And we wanted to get everything in order in case we had that.
Okay, this is Barbara. I'm reluctant to give this request for a 3-year extension. I think most of the members of this commission have not been to the site, were not involved in the original approval. Things are changing rapidly with regard to our regulations. So I am very reluctant to do this.
I agree. I think you have to, you'll need to put in a new NOI, not for an extension, but just a new NOI. So it can be reviewed under the current regulations.
I had a question.
Mhm.
Kevin, which cottage is it that is 7 feet from the edge? Because I think my concern is that where the area shown on the plan by Tim Brady as the area for relocated cottages may now be within our jurisdiction. So I think if one of these cottages is 7 feet, the closest one we had when this came before us originally was the Sands cottage at 34 feet.
That is the one. I'm not sure if he measured from the deck. I'm measuring from the deck. From the cottage, it's 15 feet.
Okay, so you've had at least 15 feet of erosion along that coastal bank. So the scale on this plan is 1 to 30. So I think it might behoove us to see where the top of the coastal bank is now to make sure your area for relocation is outside of our jurisdiction, or do you plan to move them in a different spot?
Would certainly want to move them outside of your jurisdiction. The further back from the bank, the better for everyone.
Right. So we're going to need a new NOI for that with all the appropriate paperwork. Does anybody disagree with that?
No, I also, looking at the minutes from the August 15th, 2018 approval, and it said that Brady stated he provide a sketch of where the cesspools are located. And I'm not sure, there was also supposed to be a detailed planting plan after the cottages have moved. And so I think there's a number of things where I don't have the records from 2018 of what it was proposed. So I do think we need to go through the process again.
Yep.
I'm
Without a doubt.
trying to extend the 2018 notice. The 2015 one has expired. And a completely new one was issued in 2018.
And now
Exactly.
that's expired.
I'm sorry?
And now that's expired, right?
Well, I hope to extend it. That's why I'm here, but
You've had 3 shots at it, or 2 shots for 6 years. I don't think it's too much to ask that we get an updated one, especially since there has been so much erosion that we need to see it in context. And we'll probably have to do a site visit as well.
very well.
Anybody else?
No, I agree with you.
Okay. I think that's, I move that we do not extend the NOI for the section at 420 Lecant Hollow Road in lieu of, or instead they should be putting in a new NOI.
Second, Michael.
Marty, how do you feel?
Yes.
Okay. Benjamin,
Yes.
Barbara,
Yes,
Michael,
Yes.
and Leon, yes. So we're going to need the NOI, and that'll include the disturbed areas within our square footage of the disturbed areas within our jurisdiction. On the site plan, that's new. So that's something to consider as you're updating your site plan.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Sexton, good luck.
Now, Chris, that's Form 7. Do we?
no, we don't
No.
sign anything.
Yeah, we don't sign anything if we disapprove it, which we did.
Okay.
Okay, next is the Mass Autobahn Society, map 40, parcel 172, an RDA to reduce the impact of the marsh from vehicles by reducing the volume of parking. We started talking about this last time, so I presume we're going to continue. Who's here to represent that?
Hi there, it's Ian Ives again.
Hi, Ian.
How are you all?
Fine, thank you.
Good. This is actually a different spot. Last week,
Okay.
our last meeting hearing, we were talking about the ditch filling. This is on the southwest corner, a different spot.
Right, this is down farther, right?
That's right, southwest corner off of the end of Meadow Ave West.
Right.
I hope,
the paper for that.
yeah, I hope the accompanying site maps are sufficient. I did include an up-close photo, aerial photo, that I hope is sufficient for you guys to interpret what I'm proposing. And this, like the last proposal for the ditch, this proposal was at the request of the Lieutenant Islands Association members and other stakeholders, the Wellfleet Fire Chief, and in response to Mass Autobahn's desire to protect the marsh. There was a bunch of stakeholders that we've been meeting with starting back in May of this year. Nancy Sabetta, Jim Falcone, Chairman of the Rights Public Access Committee, Bruce Hunter, Open Space Committee, Bill Haas, President of the Lieutenant Islands Association, Hillary Lemos, Sanctuary Director Melissa Lowe at Wellfleet, Chris Manula, John Reel, Chairman of the Natural Resource Advisory Board, Steve Wood. And we wanted to get all the stakeholders' input as to how to address the issues at the end of Meadow Ave West in a way that achieves all of our goals. And again, those are to reduce impact on the marsh from vehicles by reducing the volume of parking, and then also managing the way people park down there while maintaining neighbor relations and public access. So it's a complex suite of different considerations that we really needed people's buy-in for. And I will say it's a difficult situation down there at the end of Meadow Ave because we don't have obviously a regular enforcement down there by any means. We're relying on what's currently there in the form of some boulders. In the proposal, we're also relying on doing things that are more passive. We don't have resources to have someone down there to enforce parking. So we understand that what we're looking to do is to the best of our ability in a lot of respects and within the resources that we have. So what under the work description document that I gave you lays out what specifically we're proposing to do. And then on the southwest corner map, the aerial map, the color map, it shows, it's a reference to this. So we're looking to install 10 roped posts around the parking area, extending north to prevent parking on the side of the road and impact to the marsh. And you can see that those roped poles are delineated by that red line on the aerial map.
Right.
The existing boulders that are there, we propose to keep. The rope posts serve to create a more professional appearing and delineated parking area. I know that's subjective, but I feel strongly that it's more professional looking and tidy than random boulders, but that's obviously to be interpreted differently by other people. But with these delineated parking areas that we're proposing, we're talking about a total of potentially 7 slots, whether it's exactly 7 or something in that neighborhood can be discussed. But again, the goal there is to try to limit parking to a reasonable amount. Show them that we're taking measures to address the parking and the access. And the benefits in my mind of the roped posts over the boulders are that they're easy to install and repair. They're much less expensive than bringing down boulders. They're easily seen, you know, and I think that we could argue that they may have less impact than dropping a boulder on the marsh. And then the 10 4x4 pressure treated posts will be hand dug. So the ropes will be connected via these 4x4 posts. We estimate about 10 will be necessary to cover the entire area that we're talking about. Posts wouldn't need to exceed about 3 feet in height, we think. And they would have reflectors on the tips for nighttime visibility. And then per the fire chief's request, we'd like to replace the existing gate down there, which is not openable, with a lockable gate. Again, that's not, that's for emergency access only, purely for emergency access. And the gate would be hand dug or pile driven into the existing location of the fence holes if possible. The dimensions would remain the same as the existing fence we propose. And then lastly, these instructional signs, we would like to put some signs down there. We had consulted with all the stakeholders and Nancy as well about what might be the best type of sign and the wording for it. We settled on something that would say no parking, private property, violators will be towed. And these would be installed on the existing rope posts. And there'd be a standard 12-inch by 18-inch metal signs that you would see on the side of the road, something that's professional. It would also have logos on them for Mass Autobahn and potentially another town logo to add professionality to it. And we are not proposing to do any restriction to the trail that runs directly to the west that you can see on the aerial map entitled Southwest Corner. You'll see a little note that says break and rope for access. A lot of the homeowners on the island have requested that that not be restricted in any way. So there would be a gap there to allow for access to the west. And I think that about covers it.
So the road that the ditch that we looked at last time, is that up the road that's going up to the upper left hand?
No, that's a different road.
Different road?
Yep, that's different road. That's back on the intersection of Lieutenant Island Road. And I can't remember that. I don't think it has a name. It's just before you get to the causeway.
Right.
I know there's a little confusion on this. I thought we sorted it out in the last meeting.
No, that one we said a no-go for now.
Well,
This is a different
we did
project.
suggest, I think, Barbara, you did suggest that regrading with the sand that's there.
We're not considering that now, Michael.
I know.
We're just-
Yeah.
We're considering a different request.
That's
You're
right.
right.
I don't want to go back there right now.
Fine.
Yeah, let's keep looking forward here.
Yeah.
But
So I'm
Leon,
sorry to interrupt you, but this is a project in front of us now, so let's.
yeah, no, perfectly right. But I did have a question about this project.
Right.
Leon, do I have?
Yes, you may. Please.
Yes. So I'm sure it's a little bit hard, but the red line where you're planning to put the posts in and the rope, most of it seems to be in vegetation
Mhm.
rather than in the already disturbed roadbed.
Yeah, it would be right on that edge, running the edge,
Well, on
preventing
the,
people from going into the marsh.
certainly on the west side, north of the path, it goes quite far into the vegetation.
Is that,
Or was that just a slip of the?
It doesn't have to. I think it depends on, yeah, the accuracy of the image that we're looking at here. So yeah,
Exactly, because I guess
Yeah.
I would feel more comfortable if you put the posts in already disturbed land rather than extend it out further into vegetation.
yep. I think what we want to do is not have it be an intrusion and likely to get hit. So in other words, off the road, but not in the marsh. So right on that transition, right on the edge. Basically where the boulders are. there's already some boulders that don't show up on this very clearly. Just below the arrow pointing to roped poles, you'll see, it's hard to see in the image, but there are a few existing boulders. They're basically sitting right on the edge where the sand mixes into the Spartina.
So are those boulders in front of where you're going to put the locked fence?
No, there's a
No?
gap. If you look at do you guys have the associated images as part of the work description?
Yeah,
Site photographs?
yes, we do.
Okay, so if you're looking at the one that says figure 3, I'm sorry, the one that says figure 2, ground level photo of proposed work looking south, you can see the gate, and then there's no rocks directly behind the gate. There are rocks on either side of it. And if there is a rock, and I'm mistaken, then those would be removed so that there is access.
Okay,
I don't believe there is.
okay. Yes.
That is a troublesome area. People have been driving on the marsh. I think this is a good proposal.
Yeah.
Considering how many stakeholders are involved here. So I would be in favor of this as long as those posts are not in the marsh.
So is that a motion?
I guess it is, Leon. I move that we approve the RDA for Mass Autobahn.
Yeah.
Unless there's any further discussion.
With that
Yes, it's-
condition, right, your condition about the post not in the marsh.
Right.
Right. Okay.
I second it.
All right. Do any of the stakeholders out there in the ethers have anything that they don't agree with or that they're having a problem with? Okay. We have a motion and it's been seconded. Marty, how do you vote?
Yes.
I vote yes. Benjamin,
Yes.
Barbara,
Yes.
and Michael.
Yes.
Is that a -2 or 3, please?
-2, right? It's in the marsh.
It's in the resource.
Well, we've asked them to move the post just outside, but I think if we actually look at the soils there, it's probably all marsh. So I'm gonna say it's a -2.
Right. And having this area would allow us to go for that site visit from a previous discussion we had, because we could now park there.
Right.
safely.
Well, it all works out then.
Right.
I just have a quick question, point of clarification, to go back, if you're willing, to the previous proposal last time for the ditch fill. Where does that stand? Are there any steps that we need to take, Mass Autobahn, or is that for further discussion amongst the committee?
So if that wants to come back before the commission, you have to formally request that you get back on the agenda. And I believe we had asked to come up with some alternatives, such as looking at the sand around there that's displaced and seeing if there was another fix that might be less invasive.
And was that
Wait,
something we're requesting of Mass Autobahn, or was that a broader stakeholder discussion? Just for clarity.
I think it was Mass Autobahn's application, so we would ask it of Mass Autobahn.
Okay.
Unless Mass Audubon doesn't want to pursue it anymore. 'Cause
Right.
we weren't very supportive of that.
No, I understand. And it's really, I think it's now kind of moving into a discussion amongst other folks, and feedback may come from other areas. So
Yes.
I'll try to conjure up those bits of feedback and determine if we want to propose another hearing for it.
Okay.
Okay, because I suspect there'll be more stakeholders will want another say in it.
Yeah, I'm sure they will.
Another discussion.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So
Thank you.
you're welcome. That's a Form 2 that we need to sign
Yeah.
for that, for Mass Autobahn.
Determination of applicability.
Okay. Next hearing is Misty Hill Condo Association 105 Pine Point Road, map 21, parcel 53. An RDA to prune trees between cottages and water, top dead trees, prune branches within pathway and brush to be removed. to begin with, it sounds like this is more than an RDA. But
So this was an
let's-
after the fact RDA. They had done the
Oh.
work. We had sent them the letter. They came to talk to us at a previous meeting. We had this on another meeting. We requested a site plan. We've had a decent amount of discussion on it, but it is not an application to do the work because the work was already
Okay.
done. So it isn't.
All right. Okay. So, did we have any remediation steps that we suggested?
We
last
had
time?
requested a proper site plan, a planting plan, and permission of the property owner where the cutting took place.
And have we received all that?
No.
So I
No.
had contacted Marsha about this, and she said she really wasn't the right person to be dealing with this because she's just one member of the condo association. And I believe she sent 2 other folks today to come and talk to us. So we have 2 new folks here to talk to.
No, I'm here today also.
And Marsha's here, although I don't.
Hi, Marcia.
Oh, okay.
There you go. Okay, perfect.
We did submit a site plan. We did submit the RDA. The permission was that, that was a future, suggestion. We have no plans on cutting anything anymore. All we're asking is we have been pruning and we want to know what we need to do to be able to continue to prune for the view. We have never taken a tree down.
Well, when we visited, I have to say there were 2 paths down to the old railroad bed. And we couldn't figure out which was the one that you guys were using to get down there and there were 2 paths and one was recently cut. So we were very confused about what you were looking for because it looked like there was already a lot of work done.
There's only one path. I think the other thing has just formed.
It didn't
path for the
form.
right.
No, there was cutting,
yeah.
a lot of cutting involved, a lot of removal and branches moved to the side. So
Nothing was ever removed from a path. I mean, there might have been branches there, but what we use the one path to the right when you're facing the water.
Okay, Leon, can I show some images?
Yes, please do.
Okay.
A big help, I think.
This one. Okay, so are you seeing the assessor's map?
Site plan. Yep.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay, so you'll note that your parcel 53 ends quite a ways up the hill. And in fact, this is the end of the property and the property here is owned by someone else. So the cutting that was done here had to be applied by that person, not by you. Secondly, if you look at the paths you're talking about, this is the brush that was left from the cutting. This is not,
That's the runoff.
this is not modest. This is substantial. These are not dead trees. They're not pines. They're actually oaks. And you're not just taking off dead branches. You're actually cutting, or someone cut the top of the trees on someone else's land, which is on the coastal bank, which is in our jurisdiction. You can't do any of that. This is one of the paths. And you can see there's quite a lot of cutting that went on. And then this is some more cutting that went on. And then this is from the top, the one path that you said just formed, but in
That's
your
the
application.
runoff, I think. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So if there's a runoff, you have to do something about it. You can't have the coastal bank erode. You have to have plantings that prevent that from happening in future. This is the path I think you think of as the official path, and there's even erosion around that as well. So these are not satisfactory conditions whatsoever. There is also a big wood pile right on the edge of the coastal bank, which we spoke to you about. We were assured it would disappear. I was there today and it's not. It's sitting there on the top of the coastal bank.
I thought there was a different wood
I
pile.
had never, nobody ever spoke to me about that wood pile. I think somebody else misunderstood and you were talking about a different wood pile.
What was the
I
tree that
moved
fell?
that wood pile several years ago because my neighbor asked me to because it obstructed his view. I didn't realize I couldn't move it over there. I will burn it this winter and I will not put any wood back there. I didn't know, but this was not ever addressed to me until this afternoon when you showed up.
Well, it was
I
addressed
had no
last time.
idea.
Last time this case came up. At any rate, and certainly this is your view, I believe, and these trees are not at sort of a natural height. This is trimming. You have to apply if you're going to be cutting, even for a view. There has to be not a uniform view across, but it has to be a specific number of degrees across. It has to be a window. It cannot be an entire cutting off of the trees in front of one's house. So there's a lot that has not happened that in terms of application, in terms of violations, that really shouldn't be allowed. And as we say, if you come up with a planting plan that explains what you're going to do, if you're going to replace these by trees that won't grow so high, if you're going to move that wood pile, if you're going to put in planting around the path that just immediately miraculously appeared, or the path that you actually have, all of this has to be done. We all have the same interest, and that is protecting this coastal bank. So have you contacted the owner of the property that you were cutting the trees on?
No, we haven't, because that was done after the fact, and we had no plans on cutting on their property again.
I think we might have had some confusion. It was just to do the RDA in retrospect. It was maybe we worded things wrong, or what. I assume we're supposed to say what happened or what was done, and then have that be able to carry through moving forward. But I might have done it. I might have done it wrong. We might have done it wrong, I guess is what I'm saying. Sorry.
Yeah, we can understand. It's a bit confusing. I'm just wondering if this should even be an NOI and you should be guided through the process by somebody, because it's really complicated. There are a lot of moving parts here.
And the neighbors have to be notified about what you've done.
Right.
All of the abutters.
Okay.
Particularly you're cutting on their land, so they should be notified officially.
Okay.
Do you know who that homeowner is, or who that property owner is?
Yes, I do.
I believe it's Farnsworth, Charlotte Farnsworth, at least according to the assessor's database.
Yeah.
It may have been sold since then.
Then that's not what we're not talking about the same thing, I don't think.
Well, this is the property that we're talking about.
That's the yellow house.
Is that the yellow?
That's the yellow house, which owns.
Okay, on the other side, okay, and you're talking about cutting on their land?
Yes, because
The tree on the other side of the path.
the trail is owned by them, plus I think it's about 100 feet wide, which goes quite far up the hill that you may think of as yours.
Okay, all right, I
Things might be wrong though.
See, this is all that Farnsworth land. This is 100 feet from the top of the coastal bank, or whatever, a significant amount. So your property only goes partway down the hill, and certainly not across the bank. And this is where all the cutting was, down here.
right, and we
Different than
realized
that other
that
map,
after,
yeah.
but it was after the fact that we couldn't do it. I think that's where the confusion, some of the confusion lies, in that the RDA was after the fact. So I didn't realize we had to notify them because it
I
was
thought they already
already
knew.
done.
Yeah, I thought that was, yeah.
Yeah, and we weren't going to do it again.
Well, except it is unlawful to cut trees not on your property. So that falls under other Mass General laws, not Conservation Commission rules and regulations. Our concern is that you cut within 100 feet of the wetland without our permission, and you happen to not be cutting on your own property, which is, another issue in addition to the fact that it's within our jurisdiction. So I think we at this point cannot give you permission to do any additional pruning. This RDA is for the work that was done. And so there shall be no additional trimming, pruning, chopping of any vegetation on this site. And I think what we want to see is some type of mitigation plan or a planting plan to make sure there is no erosion going down those paths where you did cut.
Okay.
Yeah, which we wanted to do.
What
yeah,
do
but-
we need to do to be able to prune and trim? in
Be
the
able to
future?
prune and trim, I'm gonna suggest you file a notice of intent. You're gonna need a whole nother application for that. The trees and shrubs that you want to trim are gonna have to be clearly identified and only be on your property.
All the abutters have to be notified.
Just to prune, just to trim a tree? I mean, just to cut the new growth?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
because the topping isn't permissible under our regulations because you're gonna be killing the trees.
so
Okay, so what did you call it? A notice of
An NOI,
intent?
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and again, if you refer to the email I sent on September 2nd, I would recommend reaching out to one of those firms to help you and guide you through this process.
Well, we don't have a whole lot of money, so, we're trying to do it as much as we can by ourselves.
But this is much bigger than what you can do by yourselves because of all the filing and the wetland regulations. Unless you understand the wetland regulations, you need a consultant to help you with that
Yeah, we've been trying.
because
but
it is complicated.
confusing. Yeah.
Uh-oh. My
Okay,
screen
so
just
for
froze.
right now, we can't touch anything until we file
them.
this NOI, just so we're clear right now, and I will burn that wood this winter and I will not put it back there. I didn't know it couldn't be there. And I'll find another place for it. It's just firewood.
Yeah, we're all trying to work to preserve that bank, because if it starts to erode badly, then your whole front lawn and then your house is going to be threatened. So,
Right, I understand, and I really had no idea that I couldn't put it there, and I've been burning wood for years. I just moved it, I believe it was 2 years ago, because my neighbor didn't want it obstructing his view, but I will find another place for it after this winter, and I will burn it. That's my firewood this year.
And then-
also the brush needs to be removed. What do we want to do about the brush? I mean, it's,
I think
Is
things,
it-
that if people are, if things are living in it now, is that, I don't know. But we'll do whatever. I just wasn't sure if it's better to leave it for wildlife purposes or to move it.
That's where I think you might need a consultant because it's not our
Okay.
job to tell you what to do. You have to
Okay.
come to us with a proposal that we can look at. But maybe the department, I don't want to put this on Hillary, can advise you, but that's not our job.
Okay.
right. So are we going to, if we're suggesting that an NOI needs to be done, what are we doing about this RDA?
Well, we're
We're
suggesting.
denying it. We're denying it, right?
Well, here's the thing. We're suggesting that an NOI be filed for any additional work on the property. This RDA is for the cutting that has already taken place. We are not approving any additional vegetation removal work. So this would just cover the work that they've already done. It's not going to cover
Right,
mitigation planting because we don't have a mitigation planting plan. They could remove the brush and the firewood, obviously without a permit, but they cannot do any work on any vegetation or any planting until we see that.
so we're not going to approve this until we get a remediation plan?
That is entirely up to you.
Well,
I think we can approve this, and then if they want to do more work, they do an NOI.
But, well, okay, then we have to have conditions, right?
Well, we want to see what they're going to plant in that area that's now devoid of all vegetation, right? So we in the least need a planting plan.
Right. Yeah, it looks to me like it, since it's a path going pretty much straight down the hill, it's going to take more than planting, won't it? I mean,
They could heavily densely vegetate it and the vegetation will grow. But we want to see what plants they plan on placing there.
Is there a list someplace of plants that are suggested in the wetlands?
Yep, there's lists on the town website.
Yeah,
So
I
we
found that.
can use
Yeah,
that, we can use those.
we'll
Yeah.
still need to get permission.
We
Right,
we
alright.
can ask for permission for one of those.
Well, we can continue this RDA until such time as we have the planting plan, and then we can reevaluate that, but understanding that any additional pruning, clipping, trimming, cutting needs a notice of intent.
Okay. And where do I get the notice of intent? Can I pick it up at the DPW?
Well, you could pick up a copy there, but it's also available online through the Mass Department of Environmental Protection. It's a pretty complicated process, and I think that's why Barbara was recommending you work with a consultant to help guide you through it. It's not very user friendly.
Okay.
Got it.
all right, so I move that we continue this until probably not 2 weeks from now, but
I think we
probably
continue it indefinitely until we see the
indefinitely.
planting plan
Right,
come
so
through.
I move that we continue the 105 Pine Point Road, map 21, parcel 35 RDA indefinitely.
Second.
Do I hear-
Michael.
Second,
Okay.
Bob.
All right, Benjamin, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Marty? Yes, Marty?
Yes.
Okay, Barbara
Yes.
and Michael?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. If you, Hillary, if they have more questions, it seems like questions abound. Is there someone there that they can talk to with
Well, it's just me at the moment, so
just
you know,
you
I think-
yourself and,
it's just me and the other me. So I think I would, you know, strongly encourage them if they want to continue to trim, prune, cut, whatever,
Yeah.
that they find a competent consultant to help them through that
Right.
process. Because
And then you
I'm
can
just
get
not gonna have the
estimate,
time right now.
you can get estimates from consultants who would at least lay out what they're planning, what would they plan to do.
Yeah,
Okay.
for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
a number of different people do this type of work. I mean, there's no shortage of them.
Okay, and that was the list you sent us before. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
No. Okay, thank you very much.
thank you.
Thank
Good
you,
luck.
ladies.
Next hearing is for Callahan, 149 Commercial Street, map 21, parcel 120. It's an NOI to replace a segment of the marine bulkhead. We visited that, and this was continued from last meeting. What was the outstanding, what were we hoping to find?
Hello, good evening, Bob Perry here. Can I,
Okay, Bob.
am I coming in?
Yes, you are.
Thank you. We were with you on September 1st to review the repair for this bulkhead. There was about a 38-foot segment that had collapsed, and it's actually built of blocks where the majority of the retaining wall is of a poured concrete. April Callahan was present, and she may be on the call tonight. I'm Bob Perry with Cape Cod Engineering, just before I forget to tell you that. And I just want to recap briefly. I went away with a general understanding that you were looking for some vegetation information that might relate to something more than what we put on the plan. And there's an order of conditions in force for a project that occurred with the house. And there's a condition in that order, which is file number 77-1565, that was requiring about a 5 to 7 foot buffer along the retaining wall of, I think there was a selection for a fragrant sumac, which probably not a staghorn sumac, but it really doesn't leave a lot of room for us to do anything except to certainly restore any activity alteration. So I wanted to mention that. A question had come up about, well, why aren't you fixing it with concrete? And I had made the statement that, well, you could repair it with sheet pile. And then some years later, when the rest of the wall comes down, you just replace the rest of that with sheet pile. But in response to that question that one commissioner asked, we took it up with Ms. Callahan and her contractor. We went back and looked at the concrete wall that remains, and it's in excellent shape. We just don't think it's going to come down anytime soon. And so we've reconsidered the repair, and we submitted some revised plans about a week ago. That is a fairly straightforward repair of the concrete to replace it with concrete. And there was a third item related to the abutter on that side, which is the Hutchison and Kennedy property. April Callahan tells me she's been texting back and forth with the abutter. The abutter's aware of what needs to be done there and no objections. And so that she's in England, so it's kind of hard to have a face-to-face, but we understand there's no trouble with this bit of work in order so that the replaced wall will again butt up against the wall that is on the Hutchison Kennedy property. There is a fourth item. I am showing an elevated stair that was part of the pile bulkhead. But since they're going back to the concrete, I left this on the plan, but I've since spoken to April Callahan about it. She would prefer, and I think it would be a better option, to form in place those in-ground steps that go down just as they do today inside the upland, so that there is no projection sticking out onto the sand area there seaward of the bulkhead. So having said all that, it's a pretty straightforward job of just getting some guys in there with some forms and either pouring or pumping the necessary concrete with some reinforcing steel. So having said that, I'd be happy to take any questions that you have. Thank you.
I don't see any work limit on this plan, do I?
There is.
Oh, I see. It's just the circle around it, right?
No, the circle's the indication for a blow
I
up.
see. Okay. Yep.
We have a work limit that's shown to keep folks off the salt marsh, and that's inside the circle. It's indicated to be 8 feet away from the existing wall. It's not labeled, but it's on the smaller plan view, the 20 scale plan view. And I apologize that it's shown graphically, but it's not labeled.
Okay. Yeah, well, the work limit would be what area, where are they going to have their trucks? Where's the?
They have to come in the driveway. They'll be in the driveway. Probably won't be running any trucks out there over the septic system. I think they probably drain it by a hose, pump it, or something like that.
Bob, can I ask a question on the stairs too? I see the stair frame end view, which I can comprehend. The picture above the proposed wall detail is showing something different. That's not actually what you're going to construct, correct?
Correct. Let me be clearer, because on that blow up, the 1 inch equals 4 feet blow up.
Yeah.
You see the frame stair, but in faint line work, you can see the existing steps that exist today.
Yes.
Mhm.
Those would be just reformed, and they would be there just as they are in this picture.
In the concrete flush with the wall.
Yes,
Okay, perfect.
recessed
So
in.
could we have a revised plan showing the,
Yeah, definitely need
showing
that.
that?
Well, you have it. The plan does mentioned in this blow-up, it says optional concrete steps to be formed, and I'm showing the outline of those steps. I can darken the lines or something for you. There's no problem doing that, but we did add that option to this plan.
Right,
Right.
but just get rid of the other option that you're not
Yes,
using.
Right.
yes,
And-
that would be much clearer, and we absolutely can do that. Or,
Thank
no
you.
problem.
Thank you.
All right. Otherwise, I think you've answered all our questions and
Yep.
I have no further questions about this project.
Leon, can I ask a question, please?
Yes, you may.
I'm sure it's just that I'm not an engineer, but last time you said if you used concrete, there was the danger of it sort of subsiding or not having a good base. You have now a footing in there.
Right.
That's poured concrete footing.
Yeah, there's a footing there. It's advised. There's a footing for the other wall. Here's what has transpired. The comment that I made was that the wall that's there, and there's quite a bit of wall that's in good condition, it's not designed like you would design a seawall today, but it's functional. And the marsh, the reason we have seawalls that go down below the ground deeply is for several things. That the beach levels change, and we want to make sure that as beach levels change, the walls don't undermine. This is a beach that's very narrow, and it's hemmed in by salt marsh, and it's not dropping, and it's not about to drop. And since this is only a 38-foot segment of wall that's part of about 160 feet of wall that's in excellent condition, we don't see any reason, there's no downside to using the concrete for this segment.
Okay, thank you.
Bob, this is kind of a strange site, but I don't like to talk about any coastal engineering structures without talking about beach nourishment. We have salt marsh right here. Wondering if we want to think about the standard condition where we evaluate the beach on some time frame, or there's some money at some point put into a fund to nourish other locations along Wellfleet Harbor.
I don't think that, I'm guessing that would be acceptable, but I want to explain a little bit. I had just had a conversation with somebody recently about salt marshes being kind of natural seawalls, where oftentimes when you have natural shorelines and you have salt marsh and then the shoreline stratifies and it's usually stable. If this wasn't a recreational area over perhaps 100 years or more, probably more than 100 years, I don't think this wall would be here. And I don't think we would be adding sand, or I don't think the land would be adding a lot of sand. But since it doesn't add a lot of sand in a natural way, I'm going to speculate that April Callahan wouldn't have any objection to some form of sediment mitigation, because it would be a very small thing. It wouldn't break anybody's bank. It really, if you think of what the erosion rate would be here, I think we'd be talking, fractions of a foot per year with no significant height to the landform. So we're probably looking at a couple of yards a year, maybe less.
Yeah, could you run that calculation for us, Bob, and get us something to include in the order after you talk to April, just so we can have something in there that we might want to trigger.
I want to throw something else out here. What about planting marsh grass up to the wall?
That's very rarely hugely successful. And I'm not just blocking that request. What I'm saying is that there's very little foot traffic through here. And when you do have an area that is stabilized, either naturally or unnaturally, the salt marsh is a very, very vast patch of salt marsh here. I don't see how it could not grow by itself toward the wall, unless people were walking through and kayakers were dragging their boats. And I don't think there's any purpose in planting salt marsh here, but I think the salt marsh will naturally expand.
Well, you are going to be doing work there and disrupting whatever is existing there. As I recall, it was pretty bare.
It is, but it's a beach, and the salt marsh is a natural. It seems natural to me. That I'm not familiar enough with the shore here to see what the level of activity is, but there's a small cottage colony, and I'm speculating that people do go down to this waterfront, and I'm not able to say whether that salt marsh is being unfairly burdened by the foot traffic. I will tell you that I don't see any harm coming to salt marsh as a result of this work. We have upland that's already kind of crumbly where the wall is damaged, and then we have a sandy area below it. So we're not going to harm any vegetation.
Well, you are going to be removing the debris from the old the wall that collapsed. You're going to have to dig the sand out to put in the. I mean, it's going to be a fair amount of work. But
I agree.
But you can do it from your property, right?
Well, that's
from the
it.
top.
Upland access with a work limit to keep foot traffic, because it would be foot and hand work on the water side of that job. That has to be restricted from the salt marsh, and it will be restricted. So what I was trying to explain earlier is I couldn't see any opportunity to plant in the upland with the requirement for the 7-foot band of sumac. And I don't think beach grass is going to survive down on the waterfront. And I've seen salt marsh planting efforts. I think some Spartina patents might stand a chance if some of that could be obtained. And I know folks that have it and plant it, some of those plugs could be attempted. I just don't know the level of pedestrian use through there. It's not easy to get through, but
Well,
there might be.
it wouldn't hinge on pedestrian use. It would just hinge on mitigation for allowing this wall to be reconstructed and all the work that would be involved. So it wouldn't hinge on pedestrian use at all.
Well, if you'd like to explore that with addition, I don't know if you're familiar with Tim Fryery at the Cape Cod Organic Farm, but Tim's had a lot of luck with Spartina patents. And we are not, we're right at the boundary of the high tide line, and the patents, may have a chance in that sandy area.
I'm not sure. I think it could be explored. I mean, I think this project's okay. I'm ready to approve it. I'm just wondering about a little bit of mitigation for the work that's going to be going on.
Well, one thing that was raised last time was talking to, I guess it would be the wastewater or the freshwater committee about a permeable reactive barrier behind this.
I think that you're reminding me of that, and there's no trouble doing. It would intercept some of the groundwater. You're thinking of a wood chip.
Yes.
Or even they put in a natural oil, like a vegetable oil, injected in or dug down into it. Hillary knows about this. Also.
Yeah, that's the deep well PRBs. This would be just a carbon source put within the wall to intercept the groundwater traveling through it.
I think that. If you were to require that for this small segment, it'd be interesting. I don't know that it would have a large effect, but it could be done. That those chips would last for quite some time, right down there at the where the footing is near the groundwater, and they're not going to get a lot of oxygen, so they wouldn't cause for a lot of settlement or anything, at least not right away. So if you'd like us to do that, we can do it. I think it's a very small zone, and we can certainly explore obtaining some Spartina patents to fill in there. It's a fairly straightforward exercise. if I could perhaps review it with Hillary, if she's crafting an order of conditions, I can get, I can get more information, but we're not really moving out from where we're working. That area would just remain natural as it is. But if we took the area where we're working and we were to plant it, I really can't find an objection to that.
Or putting in what Michael suggested, a barrier there.
Because that would be a
Well,
mitigation
I'm
of
already-
sorts, yeah.
That would be
I'm
another
already
type of mitigation, yeah.
Yeah, I'm already in agreement with the wood chips at the footing, but
Okay.
they're not going to do any good above the groundwater.
No.
No.
Sure.
So
like
that's,
I like that idea, Michael, because I think that could be monitored as part of the town's waste, clean water planning in the future.
Right.
well, yeah, I mean, if they're sampling groundwater and they were to take a sample right there at that location and then test it 100 feet to the north, that might reveal a nitrogen reduction. That would be interesting to note. I don't know if it will, but how would you know unless you tried it?
Right.
Right. I agree. I think it's a good opportunity, and I would swap that out for planting any
Yeah.
Spartina there.
I think you're right. I think that it's pretty, at high tide, does it come right up to the base of the wall? Or
Not
does
at
it just
the storm tides or moon tides do. I'm sure it's up there today.
Okay, all right. So what are the conditions that we've been talking about? One is the wood chips.
One is the wood chips to go in at the footing to intercept the groundwater.
We need the site plan to be
a revised-
modified to show.
Yep, revised plan to be submitted with only recessed stairs and a beach nourishment condition or consideration, unless we want to scrap the beach nourishment because it's so small, for the wood chips, and maybe I guess I'm thinking we want the ability to monitor.
Well, if
I
you
think
or
we have to work with Bob, to work with April to craft a condition about monitoring
Okay.
before and after the concrete, just to see if we're having an impact. So Bob and I can work on that, but
all right, so can we go, so with those conditions in place, can we go ahead and that one open issue that you'll take responsibility for with working with Bob and the
Yeah.
owner, can we vote on this now?
Yes.
Yes,
So-
okay. I propose that we approve the NOI for 149 Commercial Street, map 21, parcel 120, with the tendered conditions.
Second, Michael?
Okay. Benjamin, how do you vote? You're muted.
Yes.
Marty,
Yes.
Barbara,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. You've been doing a good job there, Bob, and I
Well,
appreciate
thank
the
you. I'll
fact that
take it up with Hillary when I can get in touch with her to do what I can do, and then that'll be just fine. And I'll relate this information to April if she missed the call. And thank you all very much. Good night to you.
Good
Good night,
night.
Bob. We still need a supervisor. I'm assuming that should be me because we're gonna do some interesting things here.
Yeah,
Yes, you do the interesting ones.
Yes.
yeah, I'll give you the interesting ones.
I'm happy to trade COVID for interesting conservation things if there's any takers.
You were having a lot of fun driving that truck around this morning.
Oh God, I need
noticed
a
that.
chauffeur too. You ain't kidding.
We'll try to make it interesting for you, Hillary.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good
Good
night.
night, Bob.
Okay, we are in overtime now. So Cook, 30 Main Street, map 15, parcel 2, an NOI to replace the current accessory building with a pre-constructed accessory building within 100 feet of the wetland area in the same location. We visited this and we talked about it at the last meeting. And Mr. Cook, are you here?
Yes, right here.
Oh, there you are. Yes. So what's the deal? What are you doing now?
Okay, well, you had requested that, I was requested to come back with information on some, there were some specific follow-up questions.
Right.
And I provided, I pulled that information together, provided emailed it to Hillary on the 22nd, and then also provided paper copies at her request. So hopefully everybody on the commission received a paper copy of that information.
Yes.
But I'll go ahead and describe it here. There were three open questions. One was to identify where the 50-foot wetland buffer exists on the property. Then also to verify that the location of the septic system is at least 20 feet from the proposed building location. And so there's a map included in the information I provided that shows that based on the town GIS, and indicated where the both where the wetland boundary is, the 50-foot, as well as the 100-foot, and then where the septic is, so that we were able to confirm, and I included in the package, I included a copy of the as-built card for the septic, so that you can see the septic is greater than 20 feet away. In fact, I measured 35. And then the last thing was to provide some information about the native planting plan that we had for the area surrounding the building location, because as you may recall from your site visit, there's quite a bit of invasive English ivy that has filled that area in on all sides, well, 3 sides of the old structure that would be replaced. And so what we're intending to do is to go in and clear that out, and then to replace it with native plantings. And we've been working in consultation with the local nursery to identify the best plantings to use. And so the information I provided here is that we would be looking at pulling the ivy out. We'd be doing it by hand and clearing it a section at a time for a total of 1,600 feet. And talking with the nursery, the best way to do that is to approach it in segments and work with, say, a 10 by 10 segment, one at a time. Clear the ivy out, complete the plantings before moving on to the next area, so that we can minimize any impact, any adverse impact, as we're trying to make things better. So we'll go a section at a time in that grid that you can see the planting plan. I think that was the last page. And we've identified 9 different types of plant that we want to include in there, that we intend to include. And we included the numbers of those, and then there were a couple of pages as well that show their characteristics. So we're really trying to go for native plantings that will suit the area quite well and provide both good foliage and also provide for pollinators and also for birds.
So this is all the taking out of the invasive ivy and putting in this is all around the building that you're going to be moving in there. Is that right?
That's correct.
Not going down towards the actual wetland itself.
No.
Well, we actually, yes, in the direction of the wetland too. We're, of course, the whole area is, because it's within the 100-foot buffer. I wanted to answer the question that was posed to us, which is, what we'd be doing is remediation for the building effort. And so that's why I identified that area. Our interest obviously extends to the rest of the property. And so we have long-term plans to eliminate, to pull out that invasive ivy to the greatest extent possible, and use this remediation plan as a foundation, a starting point for doing similar improvement elsewhere, so that we can begin to allow the native plants to come back in and continue that work elsewhere.
Yeah, well, this is all looking good. When you do want to start moving into the other areas, as far as pulling out stuff and planting, you'll need to talk to us about it then too. And that can be on. I would imagine that you could come up with an omnibus RDA for that says, here's the area we're gonna do. And throughout that property, here's the density of plantings that we plan on doing.
Be happy to do that. Yeah, and I understand your interest in any changes that take place within the wetland buffer.
Right.
So absolutely.
Right.
Can I just ask one question?
Sure.
Peter,
Yes.
did you adjust your building so you're outside of the zoning requirements? Because if you have to shift this, I want to call it a shed, but I don't think you call it a shed. If you want to shift this structure, we need to know exactly where it's shifting. And so I guess I just want to hear from you on that. Not that we do zoning, but I just want to make sure you don't have to come back to us.
No, we did go to the zoning board because where we were proposing, as you can see in this picture, was 15 feet from the property line. And zoning, normally it would be a 20-foot requirement. And we presented the case to the zoning, and their bar is set higher than we met. So we need to go to the 20-foot, and that will not change anything with respect to the foliage around the building. It merely moves it. As you may recall, the building, there's a lawn on the property that leads to the building. We're just going to move it that much further forward.
Okay,
on the lawn.
so you're moving a little bit further outside of our jurisdiction.
Essentially, yes.
Okay, okay. Can I just ask that when you have the final location, you submit that in a plan to me so we have it for the file?
Oh, absolutely.
Perfect.
Absolutely. We've been out remeasuring and seeing exactly what this will entail, given the conclusions of the zoning board, which was just last week.
Great.
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
So Leon,
Yes, sir.
so I'd like to move to approve this NOI, but as recall, the conditions from, we talked about it the last time it came up, was that there wouldn't be any plumbing in the new building. And if they did want to put in electricity, they would have to apply for that.
Is that your understanding, Mr. Cook?
Yes, it is. I understand completely. Thank you.
Okay. So are those the only conditions, Michael, that you know of?
We also had no herbicide use on the property.
Oh, right, right.
Oh, yes,
So that's-
absolutely.
So that's the pulling by hand part. Okay, so do I hear a motion?
I moved that, yes.
Okay, and I'll second it then. So Ben, how do you feel about this?
Yes.
Marty?
Yes.
Barbara? You're muted, Barbara. She says yes. And Michael?
Yes.
And Leon, yes. So with those conditions, Mr. Cook, you're good to go.
We need-
Thank
we
you.
need
Done a nice
a
job
super-
on your
we need a
plantings.
supervisor. We need a supervisor for this.
I'll be
Lieutenant.
the supervisor. I pass that frequently.
Okay, Michael's supervisor. Thank you.
Great job. Thank you, Mr. Cook.
Thank you.
Okay, so that means that we need a Form 5 for that.
Order of conditions.
Right.
So, okay, next is Goldberg Hirshhorn, 520 Long Pond Road, map 16, parcel 28. This is an NOI to repair existing walkways and stairs, providing a handrail, construction 4x8 seasonal boardwalk at the end of the existing stairs, and removal of diseased pine tree is, sounds like a singular tree. We went
Good
there and
afternoon.
visited this morning, and we made some observations. Who's here to represent this?
Good afternoon, Dave LaJoy here.
Hello, David.
Hello. Okay, property off Long Pond Road that abuts Long Pond. Couple of months ago, possibly, we came before you for, there's an existing house that they're gonna tear down and replace with a new building. I'm just showing that for a reference.
Mhm.
I don't think you actually came before us for that, David.
Yeah, because you're outside of. the-
Oh, I'm
It's out-
sorry. Holy
Yeah.
cow, I'm sorry.
It's outside of our jurisdiction.
Okay, great. Sorry about that. I lied.
And the building's
Um,
gone.
Okay,
So the
what they
building's
want to
gone.
do is improve an existing access down to the pond. And several items as you described in the advertisement. And happy to answer any questions.
So what were your plans for the existing path? Were you going to be changing that at all?
Yeah, the existing path, you see on the plan, says path repair. It's a typical design where we put in timbers. Instead of the grade being uniform all the way down, it's stepped so that we can place stone in it to reduce any erosion that comes down the path. Using 6x6 pressure treated landscape timbers. And then we put 3/4 of wash stone on each step, so to speak.
Mhm.
Then we get down to, there's an existing set of stairs that goes down, elevated stairs that will be replaced as they need in the same location. And making sure the stringers and the treads are proper distance above the existing grade, 12 to 18 inches. And then we get down to the actual beach. And we'd like to propose a boardwalk, again, typical for what we use on pathways that are, you roll them up and they're seasonal, so you can remove them every year. 4 feet wide, 8 feet long, basically to provide a place for them to have beach chairs. And there's 5 trees that we want to remove because they're dying as we speak. Be happy to answer questions.
Barbara,
All right, this is, I don't know if it's a question or a comment, but the existing path is not very steep. I think that what's being proposed would be more intrusive, timbers and stone and all that. It's a very gently sloped path that goes to the stairway. I don't have any objections to replacing the stairway if you think that it needs to be replaced, but I do have issues about constructing a more formal path in the buffer zone when there's just a nice gentle path there. Putting wood and stone is much more, would be much more structure involved. I also have questions and concerns about the seasonal boardwalk because that pond is very dry right now, but where they're proposing that would many years be in the water. And I'm not sure how that works in terms of getting a permit from the harbor master for having something like that, because if it's a structure that could be in the water, it's one thing. Right now, I see a lot of pond vegetation where this boardwalk is proposed, and that would shade all the pond vegetation that's currently there. So I have concerns about the boardwalk, and I have concerns about a more formal path to the stairway.
Generally, you have questions the other way around. You're trying to control the drainage and runoff down towards the pond.
But I don't see much there, Dave, and I've been living in that area for many, many years, and I see that there's not really a big issue there. There's a lot of vegetation that's absorbing any kind of water. It's not a steep path. There wasn't a lot of erosion. It's just a nice little walkable path that I don't feel needs to be more formalized with more structure in the buffer zone to that pond. And some of it would actually be in the filter strip as well.
yeah, about a third of it would be.
The
Can we hear a bit
boardwalk-
more about the,
Go ahead.
Could I?
I'd like to
This
hear
is
more
Bennett
about the
Goldberg.
boardwalk.
I'm one of the owners. I'm the client.
Mr. Goldberg?
defer to him, please.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things, and thank you, Barbara, for your commentary. One of the things is that there is no handrail on the path. It's about a 15-degree grade. And we have seen it over the year, and especially in the heavy rains of recent times, see significant water flowing down it. So one would be to provide a handrail so that in the coming years that that has more safety for as I age, to be frank. And in addition, the the stone step could be amelioration for future erosion. Thank you.
Okay, just a quick little thing here. You could just put wood chips along that path and solve that problem of erosion without a more formal structure.
But no handrails, right?
But no handrails, because that would involve digging in some posts or poles or something along those lines.
That's very benign. Post for a handrail is pretty benign. The wood chips are also going to erode down the hill, and having the steps, we can control all that. The vegetation's going to grow around it. It's also safety, as Mr. Goldberg said. Walking down with a cooler, it's a very narrow path. Safety is a feature in that as well. You commonly ask for these types of things on projects where, when we don't have them in the scope of the project, we're asked to provide them. So I don't understand the difference in this property than typically other ones that we have.
I think,
Go
can I
ahead.
just weigh in for 1 second? We
Please
did
do.
travel the path today, all of us. And it was pretty stable as is. And looking, we've also seen projects where we put in the pressure treated landscaping timbers, and we're actually seeing more erosion on the sides of them from the hard wood than we are from just the existing pathway itself. So this plan, I don't see any sort of intensive planting schedule alongside the stairs to fully understand what you're proposing or what's going to grow in there. But that pathway, it seemed very stable, and we definitely all traveled down it safely. So I guess I'm a little concerned about, working on the bank with that steep slope, putting in the landscape timbers, which I think might exacerbate an erosion problem that's not there today.
Can I add something too? That probably the reason why that's not much of an erosion issue is because it's probably nothing but roots under there. So what concerns me is that the amount of excavation is actually going to be digging up a lot of like really well established roots. So that I would kind of agree with the assessment that it's worse than not doing anything. That's all.
And I'd like to hear a little bit more about this.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Mr. Goldberg.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Barbara, I did want to address the issue of the different pond heights. We certainly wouldn't have that boardwalk down there if the pond raised to, another 1.5 feet or so, which it has been in the past, and it would only be used in drier times like this.
But in drier times like this, there's a beach that you could put chairs on. So, I mean, I can counter some of your, I appreciate what you're trying to do and what you're trying to say, but this is an area that we have to protect for a lot of reasons. The other issue are the trees that you say are diseased, but if you look around that pond, a lot of trees fall into the water periodically, and that provides habitat. I don't see a reason to remove the trees unless they're going to
Fall on me.
damage a structure or something along those lines. So it's not like it's threatening your house or anything like that. This is part of the natural ecology of the pond.
And when I looked at the trees, they were all growing. I mean, they had needles on them. They seemed to be fine. They weren't dead. One of them was leaning way over. I suspect that's the one. The two pair that are parallel to the pond. It looks like the lower one is the one that was leaning way over. Is that the one that you thought to remove, David?
Yes.
And it looked to me like if it fell, it would just fall off to the side there, and that would. Okay. I didn't see the pine trees needing to go, other than maybe that one that was right there at the foot of your stairway, but even that is not really threatening anything. So this seasonal boardwalk, you say roll it up. I mean, what's it made of? I guess, David.
The detail, it describes what's made of. The pieces of wood that are held together by steel wire, and they're used for beach walkways. And convenient as your walk, you can roll them up in sections and get them away from there and bring them back when you need them.
Okay.
It keeps the chairs off the beachfront, which again, normally you want something to be used rather than just putting beach chairs on the bare sand.
But they can cover the vegetation, the beach vegetation, the pond vegetation. That's
what's going. I'm sorry. What's going to do that?
This boardwalk.
No, the boardwalk is only going to be. There's no reason to put them in the trees. You're trying to have a chair there, so they're just going to be on the open beach. As enough as they need to put some chairs, and take them up seasonally in the fall. We put them back in the early summer. No trees are going to be lost. No vegetation is going to be lost. It's all going to be on the sand. No one's going to want to go onto the vegetation to put a chair up. This will allow them to do it.
I think the concern, David, is that there is vegetation there today. So you're going to be placing this boardwalk on top of the pond vegetation that's there.
We'll reduce whatever width it is that is seen as on any vegetation. That could be a simple condition as well. Don't bother the vegetation when you put down the mat. Certainly the intent is not to take away any of the vegetation. It's to put beach chairs so you can sit there on the pond front.
You don't intend to enhance the beach at all. I just see this comment that says beach and I can't find any information to go with that. Are you just pointing out that that's a beach?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Yes, it shows beach down right above the word Long Pond.
Yeah.
If you went there, you saw the area. I don't know how that needs to be enhanced at all. It's just an area where people have been walking and coming down the path and utilizing it for access to the pond.
Okay, no, I guess I was asking you, do they intend to enhance it at all to create a beach? No, I'm not suggesting that it needs to be enhanced. I was just asking if that was, I was unsure what you meant by labeling as beach, that's all.
Yeah, no, we would definitely have the boardwalk as narrow as requested and not covering any vegetation.
Well, and it seems like none of us have any issue with replacing the moss-covered steps on the stairs. Those were a little scary looking. I'd like to come back to, I agree about not hardening the existing path or formalizing it, but I would like to go back to Mr. Goldberg's concerns about safety with a handrail. Is there any anything we can do there? I mean, it's, it would have an effect on the roots, as has been pointed out.
Excuse me, I may not have described it more, but we're probably talking about 4x4 posts, 3 feet above the ground, and rope between the posts, so you have some stability as you're walking down the hill.
Just rope?
Nothing more, yeah, nothing more substantial than that.
Wouldn't you have to widen the path in order to put those in?
You're gonna have the post right on the edge of the path, so when you're walking down the path, you don't hit it. Just like a deck. When you walk on the deck and you have the railings, they're right on the edge of where people are gonna walk. And that's where the railing would be as well. Made out of rope, if that's what you would like, just to provide stability.
Well, Mr. Goldberg, how would you feel about just having rope strung along the edge there?
Well, I mean, you know, as long as they could be slightly taut enough so that they could provide appropriate stability, right?
Yeah.
And you know, the 4x4 posts, right? It's, you know, sort of nestled right as close to the path as possible. I think would provide that extra safety. Thank you.
Well, we're not there yet. We're just kicking this around.
Understood.
Leanne, can I ask a question?
Yes, sure.
So at present, there's a float off the beach.
No, that's not our property. That's a neighboring property. I mean, it's actually 2 properties over. That is not.
No, there's a small buoy.
Oh, yes, that buoy has been there for, I think, 20 years or so. I mean.
So you have no intention of putting a float or anything else there?
No. We're just maintaining the buoy as is.
So we can make that a condition.
Yeah, that would be good, I think.
Leon, can I speak?
Yes.
Good evening. It's Jeremy Young representing Bennett and Lisa, my clients. Just to point out to everybody, this property has been unoccupied for 2+ years. The existing house was pretty much uninhabitable, and my clients are just looking to traverse the walkway safely. So by that means, foot traffic will create erosion. There is no erosion there because no one's been traversing up and down that. So just to point that out to you guys, that's why the condition of the overall grounds, the stairwell, you know, it doesn't look used at all.
Right. Barbara, what did you think of my idea, or the idea of just some posts with rope through it? Is that?
I think they'd have to widen the path in order to do that, because the posts
Yeah, it's pretty narrow.
would take the path. So I'm really not in favor of anything except replacing the existing stairway. That's how I feel right now about this project.
I'm sorry, Barbara, but did you understand what I explained about where the post would be?
Yes, but
Okay.
the pathway is about 1 foot wide. So if you put the post in, where are you going to walk?
The path is much wider than 1 foot. It's
Well,
close
it
to
was-
2 feet, 2.5 feet.
It was
And
pretty narrow when we were there today.
Very narrow, yeah.
Yes.
But the post, just like you had a garden and you were walking around the garden, the posts would not be in the garden area. They'd be adjacent to it. It's
I
not going to
understand.
reduce the size of the path at all.
So why don't we make it a condition that it can't be dug into the vegetation and the size of the footprint of the path can't be altered or something?
How's it down?
I think I'm still confused about the existing path and how you're gonna fit these pressure treated landscaping timbers in building stairs down there. I'm
Sure.
struggling with that vision.
Okay, the path is there. And you start by digging in about, if you look at the detail, you dig in about 6 inches. And you put in one of the timbers. And then you make a flat area about 3 feet wide, depending on how the slope goes, and you put another garden timber in the ground. Sometimes you need one, sometimes you'll need 2. And then you just put the stone right on top of that flat surface now.
But
you
I
walk-
guess, I think more specifically, you're asking to install that where you have existing path shown on the plan, in the existing path that we traversed today, right?
Yes.
Okay, okay.
You see how wide those timbers are?
They're 6 by 6.
Length. What's the length of them?
The length will keep it the same width. It's about 2.5 feet of the walkway. 2 feet's very narrow to walk down holding a cooler, as we all know. Or towels, whatever it might be.
Yeah, I think I'm just concerned about the increased erosion once you put those landscaping timbers in there. I'm
We
worried
can-
about that.
Okay, we can certainly evaluate it when it's in there. If it's more bark mulch, then we can do that to stabilize it. And I'm sure it's going to stabilize itself within 1 or 2 seasons at the most. I think we've all seen them. And they're quite useful. They're very easy to install. The stone's there to hold the rainwater and stormwater from going down the hill. And they should be able to fit nicely into that natural environment.
Except what we've seen happen is that the water actually runs down the side of the steps in these storms that we're having. So that's my concern. I mean,
Okay? I do.
stability.
They'll have to be packed with a hand packer outside so that any sand that's there is compacted. And then we could put bark mulch on the exterior of it very easily to eliminate that part until the rest of the vegetation grows all around it.
If I might be heard.
Yes.
I, for one, being an elder citizen, okay, I'm concerned about the safety. I mean, I understand, the pathway, but you know what? Yeah, it was easier today, but that's not going to be an easy thing for somebody that starts to get a little bit older and has to come on down. And honestly, I don't see the harm in allowing the steps as proposed.
Yeah, it's certainly not it's not an unreasonable thing to request. And I also am sensitive to safety issues for the owner. It just strikes me that there's the dotted lines here indicate a 2 foot difference, and they look to be 6-7 feet apart all the way along. So that isn't a very steep path. I certainly didn't. But there again, if it hasn't been used for 2 years, that's certainly something to take into account. We have 3 things going here. We have the boardwalk, or 4 things going. We got the boardwalk, we got the stairs, we've got the trees, and we've got the path. And the path includes handrail. I think the only thing that we do agree on is that the stairs could be repaired. Is that correct? I think. So
Do we see a plan showing the posts for the handrail?
No.
I can easily provide that to you.
I mean, from a,
Excuse me, I think they're
From a,
commonly used in the seashore as well.
I just want to see how many posts and where they're going. The same way I'm
Yes.
wondering exactly how these steps are going to fit in that landscape, because it's not going to be a uniform set of stairs going down. You have to work with the elevations and the grades. And so I think that's part of what I'm struggling with here, is that the detail, it's tricky for me to understand, how you're going to make that work with turns in the path and the fluidity of the path.
Just saying thank you that the steps are going to be basically at grade. And as you traverse further down, that's 6 inches. In some places will need to be 12 inches deep. And that may be 8 or 10 feet away from the last set of steps that you put in. So it's not going to be uniform every 3 feet. It's going to be made to mate with the existing grade. You may have places where, again, it's 8 feet between the steps, or 3 feet, or 7 feet.
right.
Is it possible to go out and assess that and show us on the plan where the steps are going, at what elevation, and the plantings that you're going to propose on the side? Because I think we need to, have a closer, more defined look at what the proposal is, and include the stairway, where the posts are going for the railings. I'm just thinking of another project we had recently with the stairway down to a pond that, turned into something that wasn't exactly shown on the plan, and there's decent amounts of erosion out there. And I guess that's my biggest concern. I am really worried about the erosion on the side of these steps.
I can do that. Can we assume that we're gonna, I don't know what specific type of planting would be good adjacent to it. It's probably only gonna be 4 to 6 inches outside of the step where they're gonna need to do any work. Can we put bark mulch on the sides?
That merely stops some of the water from running down.
Yeah, and David, if you're
It
talking
doesn't,
about, David, if you're talking about 2.5 wide, 6x6s, and then another 6 inches on either side of that, now you're talking about a 4.5 foot wide path.
No. If the path is gonna be 2.5 feet total, that
Right.
means the steps are gonna be 2.5 feet wide total. And then you're gonna have, you could basically with a spade shovel dig right perpendicular to the face of the grade there and go straight down, level the sand and put your first timber in. And then you're gonna go down a ways. I can show you a section running lengthwise and determine to some degree whether there's gonna be 14 steps or 10 steps and what their average distance between them is gonna be. I can provide you that, considering the existing grade.
Yeah, fine. I was just talking, if you're talking about mulch on either side of the 2.5 wide.
I think the mulch, excuse me, I think the mulch is only gonna be a byproduct of a man standing there putting the timber in. He's gonna try to do it all from within the existing path. Perhaps when he uses the shovel, he has to go another 3 inches wider. So it would be, the bark mulch would go on the exterior of the path wherever there was a disturbance from the man-made work.
Well,
I agree.
the path traverses from the 20-foot line to the 32-foot line. So that's a difference of 12 feet. And if you have 6-inch risers, you're talking about 24 steps for that entire length. Does that seem correct?
That depends on how much space you have between the steps. If the grade is there, all we have to do is put the stone down and before we get to the next step.
Yeah, I understand that, but what I'm saying is for that entire length of the thing, you're gonna have about 12 steps.
Steps, that could be.
I think seeing the details would be helpful for us here.
Yeah.
I think I may be able to find places where this work has been done and give you some photos as well.
If it's consistent with the environment that this one's gonna go in, that would be good. We'd like to see what the plants are beside it and any signs of erosion around it.
Okay, I'm sorry, but I don't think there's gonna be any plantings alongside of it. We're trying to have an open area for the safety, and the existing vegetation that's there should just grow into where the steps are. But we'll put bark mulch on there as well.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
kind of the part where I'm a little unsure about, because I believe the footprint, the construction footprint is going to be larger than the footprint of the steps themselves. So there's going to be, even if you try really hard not to do that, it's going to happen. So I would only be interested in approving steps if there was a vegetation plan on either side of the steps.
Because the work limit indicated seems reasonable for doing that work. You're going to have materials, you're going to have piles of sand. You're going to be disrupting around the path. There's no way around it, I don't think. And
Yeah,
you've
it's
defined the work
unreasonable
limit.
to expect yourself not to do that.
Okay, I disagree with you that especially someone who knows how to do the work is gonna all work with inside the footprint. No reason to go outside of it.
So why was the work limit spaced out good 5 feet or so on each side of the path?
I'll reduce it.
Okay, but I think we need to be realistic here. And I think
I'm being very realistic.
Yeah,
I'll show you where
exactly.
the work's been done before.
okay, that's fine. That's fine. I hear you loud and clear, but I think what we're saying is we're very worried about erosion on the side of these timber steps. And one way to mitigate the erosion is not with bark mulch, but vegetation, because the vegetation is gonna do more for the water runoff than the bark mulch. So I guess I'm not sure why you would be so opposed to planting vegetation along the side of the steps. That's when we've seen these steps be most successful, is when there's vegetation planted tightly up next to them.
Okay, so you're familiar with them, what vegetation was used. I'll mimic that. We earlier talked about having the whole path being bark mulch. And now, if we're able to do the steps, if there are small plantings within a foot or so of the outside of the steps, or 4 feet outside of them, whatever is appropriate, we can plant. No problem. I don't anticipate it being anywhere near that wide, but we can make whatever work limit area as constrictive as you like.
Hillary, it's Jeremy again, the one that'll actually be doing the work. The overall width of disturbed area will be 36 inches. There'll be 30-inch wide path steps, overall width of 36 inches. I don't feel that I can mitigate any planting while not inhibiting access for the homeowners. The sides of the path currently are fully vegetated.
I guess, I think we need to see the more detail on the plan to evaluate this, and perhaps we need to go back out for another site visit.
Right.
And
Yeah,
I go back.
and I'd like to make sure that
I'm sorry, I go back to my bark mulch idea and forget the steps. Because they seem to be causing a lot of problem. It would be so much easier to just use some mulch down the existing path.
I don't know why that's an objection to where you can physically control the stormwater when the bark mulch is just going to continue flowing down the hill?
Because it's
You've
not
seen that
a
as
steep,
well.
it's not a steep hill, Dave.
That's a relative statement, unfortunately.
What are your thoughts on the railing combined with wood chips? Because wood chips aren't necessarily the most stable product. They shift around compared to 3/4 inch washed gravel. So I think the handrail is a necessity.
How long is it gonna take to build the house?
Bennett, could you answer that for us?
Sure, I think it's going to take 6 months. That's
6
what Tim Dickey is the design builder.
Okay, I'm just wondering if maybe we want to watch the path for another couple months while people are actively on site using it.
Well, this is not the time of year when that path gets heavily used. And, you know, I appreciated Jeremy's comment before that the house had been unoccupied for 2 years. And I would say the Mrs. Landsberg, who lived there before, was in her 90s and probably hadn't used this path in many, many years prior to that.
Okay, and I guess, you know, I think we're struggling because we traveled the path today and it didn't seem so difficult to travel. And so I think I'm struggling to understand the hard stairs going in with the threat of erosion in this sensitive space. And you know, I guess maybe I need to see it again with a more defined plan of where this is all going.
All right, I think we've discussed this enough. I think we do need, you've heard what our concerns are. You've heard what we would like to see on the plan, possibly an expand somewhat. Yeah, and as far as how this, what happens to this path, we need, you know, we need to consider it some more because it is a very delightful path. It's just, I mean, going up it or down it is fun. And so the only question is, has the fact that it hasn't been used much or at all for 2 years, that also discounts the fact that locals would walk down there even if there wasn't a house there. But
Nope.
I don't think we're there yet. And also, I'm still interested in these trees.
Yep, I understand, sir. Let me ask for a 2-week continuance to where I can give you the section that you're talking about for how the stairs traverse down the path.
Okay.
Try to find some photos of where they've been installed before, including the
Okay.
handrail. And if we could take it from there. Thank you.
All right. Did you say something, Mike?
No, Barbara's saying.
Oh, I'm sorry, Barbara.
I would just suggest some alternatives, you know, a few alternatives that would be acceptable to the homeowner.
Right.
That we can consider that would be acceptable to our duty to protect the environment.
Thank you. And it would provide some safety in future years.
We are concerned about that as well. So we'd like to hear what we need to evaluate and assess the disturbance that safety feature would include. But I think we can get there. I move that we continue this for 2 weeks.
Thanks very much.
Leon, just one quick question. What's the board's thought on the 4 trees that are posing a hazard to the client's future use?
Well, I wasn't sure exactly which trees we were talking about. Were they marked? I didn't see any marked.
Dave, did
But
you
I
mark?
did
suggest
also
they
didn't
be
see any
marked.
that, huh? Pardon me?
They were not
I
marked.
said, I would suggest that they be marked.
Right, right.
I could,
And I didn't see
easily-
any trees that looked like they were going to cause any immediate damage to the path, the stairs, or the house where it's going to be. So I'd like to see those marked so I can, because I was very confused by, I was looking for dead pines and I didn't find any dead pines. So I'd like to see that.
So has your motion been seconded? If not,
Not
I'll
yet.
second. I
All
second.
right. Okay, Ben,
Yes.
Marty,
Yes.
Barbara,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
and I, yes. I hope we can come to closure on this that's satisfactory to everybody. I think we can, but it's going to take some work.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you for your consideration today. I appreciate it.
Mhm. You're welcome. Okay, the next one is Baker 35 way number 6, but I think it's actually 6D. Map 19, parcel 16, NOI renovation and addition to single family dwelling. Do we have a problem in the fact that it's got the wrong way number on this?
Yes,
Yep.
it's not advertised correctly on the agenda, so we should
Right.
not hear it,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
we can't.
May-
I'm sorry.
May I speak to that, Hillary?
Yes,
So that's not the fault of the applicant?
No, it's not. That doesn't matter whose fault it is. It's just the fact that we can't legally discuss it if it's improperly advertised.
So you mean we've gone through this process to get to this point, and I can't represent the applicant, Patricia Baker, on her project?
I
That's
think
nice.
we can hear it, but we can't deliberate on it. So we can't vote to approve or deny it, but we can hear your presentation.
So I've sat through this entire evening of all these things, including Dave LaJoy's presentation that went on for 45 minutes to find out that this could not be presented. I wish, why couldn't you have done this at the beginning of the meeting? This seems like a totally unfair thing to do to myself and the applicant.
Well,
I'm sorry.
I was gonna say,
Okay, let's hold it. All right.
I'm sorry.
Hey, hold it. Hillary, please, go
I
ahead.
think that you can go ahead and present the case. We have some questions. And, you know, I don't present the case. We have some questions and,
Right.
No, I understand completely the situation you're in, but I've been attending this meeting since 5 o'clock on Zoom.
well, why don't we
I
not
would've-
debate
I-
that and just present the case, David? Just begin your presentation, please.
No, but you said we can't talk about it.
No, you
Well,
can,
you could
you can
present
present, we can't resolve it. That's all.
We can't resolve it because we have to properly advertise it, but we have some questions that you could research while, you know, you're awaiting us to advertise it properly.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that, Hillary. So Patricia Baker's on this as well, the applicant. She purchased this property 10 months ago. The property has a very small 2-bedroom dwelling, as I'm sure you noticed when you went to the site. It was constructed in 1945. Resource areas on the site include a vegetated wetland, land subject to coastal storm flowage, zone AE elevation 13, and a coastal bank. So, and I'm sure you're all aware of this, but when the new flood zones were mapped and adopted in 2014, a portion of this property was mapped as zone AE elevation 13. So we determined where the top of the coastal bank was by establishing and tracing flood zone AE 13. And at that spot, the slope of the landform is between a 4-to-1 and a 10-to-1 slope. So it's considered to be a coastal bank. I think the important thing to note here is that the coastal bank does not function as a sediment source, nor does it act as a buffer to stormwaters. It's very obvious when you visit the site. I don't know when or if or in the future stormwaters would come into this area, but it's a vegetated wetland. So the proposed project includes the renovation and the addition to the existing dwelling and the construction of a new deck. There is no increase in the number of bedrooms to the structure. There is a Title V plan that was prepared by Jason Ellis several years ago for a new septic system that at that time, the septic system was located 100 feet away from the resource area, which was the wetland. Unfortunately, that's not the case now. The work will occur over, and I apologize if you have my my project narrative in front of you. I noted that the work will occur over preciously altered areas. What I meant to say was previously altered areas. I picked up that typo when I was preparing this evening. So all construction is located outside of the 50-foot buffer to the top of the bank, with the exception of 31 square feet of the steps off the deck. The stairway would have open risers and a minimum of 1/2 inch spacing for the decking to get down to the path. There is an existing gravel path that is located just landward, or excuse me, just seaward of the stone wall on the site. Between the 50-foot buffer and the edge of the clearing near the top of the bank, there is a healthy area of naturalized plantings. And the proposed steps and decks are located 113 feet from the edge of the wetland, and the addition is located 125 feet from the edge of the wetland. So I apologize if I was a little upset earlier. I just wish that I could have known about this sooner. And that would be my presentation. Thank you very much.
Leon, can I ask a quick question?
Certainly, Mike. Go ahead.
Actually, there's two. Do you have a total square footage for the total proposed house, including the decking and so on?
And the stairs and the patio.
The patio's existing. I can provide you with those numbers, Mr. Fisher. I don't have them available right now.
Okay, because those would normally be on the plan, and there is a maximum that is allowable within the 100-foot zone for the top of the coastal bank. I realize that it's only nominally
the 5,000 square foot number.
3,000 square foot.
Oh, excuse me.
And it also depends on, I believe, when the house was originally built and when the property was transferred.
As I mentioned earlier, it was built in 1945.
Right, but it was transferred to Ms. Baker not that long ago.
10 months ago.
Yeah, because I think there's a difference between whether it was transferred at before, was it November, I don't know, 5 years ago or something like that.
2003.
Hillary's looking it up. But anyway, that would also be helpful. There's a concern.
Could I ask you a question, Michael?
Certainly.
So that number, did you have a chance to visit the site?
Yes.
We did.
So all the work is pretty much occurring landward of that stone wall and gravel path.
Yes.
So there's a small portion of the stairway off the coastal bank that is over undisturbed areas. So would it just be that portion of the stairway that's new? Because obviously the site's been disturbed and altered over the years. I'm unsure as to what you want to know.
Okay.
Specifically.
We want everything within the 100-foot zone, the buffer zone. That includes the wall, the patio, the walkways, the gravel parking, those are all, gravel parking's outside the 100, so that doesn't count. But those are all disturbances, and those all contribute to that 3,000 square foot limit in the buffer zone.
Okay,
So you may be under, it's impossible for
Yeah.
us to tell.
okay. I understand. Thank you.
The other thing is that there was, oh, Hillary, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't want to throw a wrench into all of this, but that patio was never permitted through this Conservation Commission. So I have combed the records here. And in 2019, we saw Miss Abigail O'Hara, who was the prior owner, for some work she had done on vegetation removal. And we had come to an agreement that she was going to plant shrubs, 3 shrubs to be planted for every tree removed. She was going to notify the office prior to work. We have a little plan here, and that patio was not there. So,
nor was the stone wall, I suspect.
and neither was the stone wall. So I'm really struggling with that aspect of this property.
Well, I think the issue lies with the fact that when the septic system was installed, Jason Ellis prepared a plan and it showed a buffer zone on the property to the wetland. And that's the plan of record that's on file with the Board of Health and the Conservation Commission, and that did not reflect the new flood zone that was created in 2014. So I understand that completely now, and I apologize for that. I was not aware of that at all, Hillary.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I wasn't aware of it till I stood on site today. And of course, because I'm the health agent and the conservation agent, and we're amidst a pandemic and a slight outbreak in Wellfleet, I did not have a chance to ring you at any point today to talk about it, but that's troubling to me. So that's, I think we need to come to some understanding of that, and, you know, some mitigation measures or something needs to be.
Well, I obviously understand that this has to be continued. I did not realize that this was such an issue. I anticipated the fact that when Patricia Baker bought this property 10 months ago, and there were now no outstanding issues with the Conservation Commission, I wasn't going to be running into this. So this is a surprise to me and most likely her. Yeah. And how would you suggest that we proceed at this point? I know you've had a long night and I don't want to take up a lot of your time.
Well, starting out, first of all, getting a grip on what the current disturbed area is, including the patio, the path and the wall, etc. But also, and then what it would be with the changes that you're suggesting.
So does current disturbed area include lawn?
Good question.
No. I mean, it doesn't.
Then, so how do I calculate current disturbed area, Hillary? Because
you're going to calculate the patio, you're going to calculate the gravel walk, you're going to calculate the stone, you're going to calculate the area in the back that's tarped and no vegetation is growing through it, or some weeds are poking through it. You're going to
I'm just asking because the work we're proposing is over previously disturbed areas, which is lawn. And I don't understand how to come up with this 3,000 square foot number.
Right. So you're going to take all the hardscaping on the property.
Okay.
Right? You're going to calculate that, include the shed. You're going to offer mitigation.
Now the shed's outside of the 100 foot.
Okay.
This
so
is
the
the
shed,
gravel parking.
Yep. So the buildings, the walkways, the pathways, the patio.
Well, I can tell you now, we're definitely not exceeding that threshold, but I will come up with those numbers for you. Thank you very much.
Which is great. And then I think you're going to offer some type of mitigation, some vegetation work in the back where there's tarps and whatever else going on back there. And it says naturalized area, but it's it needs a lot of love. So I would offer up some type of intensive mitigation plan with vegetation and bring that back to us.
Okay, no, this is great. I appreciate your help on this, and I would request a continuation to the next meeting if I could, please.
Okay, so that would be 2 weeks from tonight. That means that
2020.
1 week from today, we need the paperwork in. You understand that, right? That
I do, and if I can't get the paperwork in, I will request an additional continuation.
okay.
Okay, so it was
Just wanna
worth,
make sure that we're on
it
the
was
same
worth
page.
hanging in there, even though
Yeah, yeah,
we couldn't vote. Yeah.
right.
But I am
Barbara.
sorry.
Thank you, Barbara.
Okay, all right. So I move that we continue this until the next meeting, which is what, September the
October
19th?
20th. October
October
20th.
20th.
Second,
What year
Michael.
is this? Okay. Do I hear a second?
Second, Michael.
Okay, Ben, how do you vote?
Yes.
Marty,
Yes.
Barbara,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
and Leon, yes. And Mr. Little, hang in there with us. We'll get this.
No, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Have a good evening.
You too.
Okay, so that's continued. All right. Boy, the people that are still on the list have really been waiting a long time. Okay, Falk, Marcus Pascoud. Sorry, I'm terrible. 117 Samoset Avenue, map 28, parcel 107, an NOI to remove the existing dwelling and construct a flood compliant dwelling and upgrade septic system. Is there somebody here to speak to that?
Yes, sir. Matt Farrell from J.M. O'Reilly and Associates.
Okay, Matt, let her rip.
All right. So yeah, I'm representing Beth Falk and Raul Marquez Pascal. These folks purchased the property in March of this year. The property is served by an existing 3-bedroom dwelling, approximately 10,400 square feet of land area, direct frontage on Wellfleet Harbor. There is a concrete zigzag bulkhead along the coastal beach. Also, that delineates where the edge of where the coastal bank was measured from in the 1,500-foot buffer zones. We're also located in land subject to coastal storm flowage based on flood elevation 13, which is comprised of most of the property. It's also in the Wellfleet Harbor ACEC as measured from the 10-foot contour along the beach. It just happens to coincide with the 100-foot buffer zone for the coastal bank. I will just make a point on this property that along the limit of work line and along the existing edge of clearing west of the existing house, it's an area of beach grass, and then there's the zigzag concrete bulkhead. So the land slopes from the beach grass toward the bulkhead, and then it slopes from the beach grass toward the road. So it's kind of like a high point right there, the edge of the, right where we propose the limit of work. So we worked in the past for the prior owner, Margaret Roberson, to complete a septic design. The septic design came in front of you folks about a year ago and was approved in the location shown here on the property. There was a lot that went into where the septic went based on the existing well on the property and abutting wells. So the proposal is to remove the existing structure and build a new structure basically within the same footprint. If you look at the plan we provided, page 2 of 5, you can kind of see the dashed line underneath the shaded hatch of the new house. That dashed line is the existing deck and the existing dwelling. So it kind of shows the overlay and what we're adding. So yes, the new dwelling will be a flood compliant dwelling. There's flood vents in the foundation that would allow flood waters to flow through the dwelling. We're not really changing the grade around. It's going to be basically built into the slope that's there. We're not bringing in fill. We're not taking out fill. We are expanding a little bit towards the road. There's a handicap ramp for an elderly family member, and also these folks are planning for the future as they age. That comes up on the north side of the house to the front. The house will be fitted with, so it's a very green design. The house will be fitted with solar panels, and it'll be, basically a green structure. Everything that they can do. There'll be no oil heat, if you will. It's a very modest design. I think it fits the neighborhood. It fits the existing topography. We'll be going back to the Board of Health so they can review the floor plan. We'll also be going to the Zoning Board of Appeals for what I believe is a special permit for some sideline setbacks. And we have our DEP number. And I did speak to one of the abutters today. We spoke on the phone for close to an hour. Very nice gentleman, Rob Barber, and his wife, Bonnie Nealon, at 107 Samoset. We talked about the septic design, and I tried to answer a lot of the questions that he had. He may have some more tonight for you folks, but I just thought I'd give you a heads up. And at that, I'll open it up to the commission for questions and comments.
Well, as you just heard, we do like to know the square footage of the disturbance that happens within the 100-foot. So
We have that, Leon, on our plan.
we do? I'm
Yeah,
missing
we
that.
do.
Sorry.
Matt's good like that.
Where is it?
Right on the front
Oh, there it
page. Yeah.
Front page.
So it's.
There's an existing area table and a proposed area table.
Oh, hey.
And then there's a column on the far right
got
that
it.
shows the difference.
I got it. Thank you. It's late. I'm old and I forget things.
And the difference, just to point out, the difference is the deck and the ramp in the north and the east, the front of the house, or what I'm.
Okay. Oh,
Correct?
okay. Well, no, there's
no.
also an extra house there. I mean, there's, right?
Right.
We expanded the footprint
The
somewhat.
footprint in like streetward, not seaward.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
No, it's
But still in the buffer.
Correct.
Right.
yes.
correct.
So a small point, may I ask? So you're
Certainly, Mike.
replacing the current shower on one side with a rinse station on the other. The rinse station is almost out of the 100, so it's just barely in our jurisdiction. But if you're talking about a very green house, we've been looking at rinse stations with a mitigation, a layering underneath the floor of it, of wood chips or something like that, which takes a lot of the nitrogen out. And it would be relatively easy to do, and it would make the house just that much greener.
Yeah. And we appreciate the fact that you're using the advanced technology septic system. Considering how close you are to the bay, that's wonderful.
I don't think we really had a choice, to be honest with you.
Right.
No, I don't think so either.
Right.
So you didn't have a successful choice, let's put it that way. So proposed area total, only 1,700, that's great. Anybody else have any questions or comments in the commission?
I think it's actually a better structure than what's there because it's floodplain compliant, which is what we strive to see people do. So this is an exciting project, I think.
Yeah, and so the basement is just basically a crawl space and a dirt floor utility area, is that right?
I believe there will be a slab in the basement, and they'll be able to store things in there like, beach chairs and that kind of stuff.
Well, on the plan, it says dirt floor, but it would only.
On the architectural plan?
Yeah, the last page. And it shows the basement, the existing floor. Oh, that's the existing floor.
Yeah.
Never mind.
There is supposed to be a slab. There will be a slab in the basement.
Okay.
if you look at the foundation plan, it says unfinished foundation, 40 by 44. And then top of proposed slab, and the elevation is not specified yet, but it'll basically be a slab at grade inside for storage. There'll be no utilities in there because everything has to be above the floodplain.
Right. Okay, so it won't be used for any kind of residence.
It can't
Or
be used for
occupation.
habitable space.
Correct.
And it's an alternative treatment system, which some of our members will be quite pleased about.
Yeah. There's a lot to like about this plan, I must admit. And it may not fall down like the old one. Looks like it's about to in places. Isn't this the one that has the tower in the top with a little tiny deck with a?
No.
Isn't that?
No.
No, no.
Huh?
So this is the one with the great view.
Yeah,
Right,
we
right,
stood there
right,
this
right.
morning.
Oh, that's right. That was the other one. Okay.
I
Never
parked
mind.
next to the boat.
Yeah, my blood sugar is bottoming out here. Okay. I like this plan myself, and I don't really see anything much to critique. I think Mike's point was well taken on the wash station.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. I love the septic system. What's happening with the old leach pits? You're just going to leave them there? Is that right?
They'll be pumped and filled with clean sand.
Okay.
If the commission wants, we could dig
It's
this
outside.
out.
It's outside of our jurisdiction. I was just wondering.
No, it's actually in your jurisdiction. The cesspool is located in the 50.
I'm looking at the, oh, this is the proposed H2O leach pits. Okay, got it. Okay, I've made enough mistakes on this. Okay, Barbara?
Will there be any vegetation plan on top of the leach field? What's gonna be there, just grass? or-
No, we can't have any vegetation growing on top of it, so that's
Because
just
the
gonna be
roots, the
natural.
roots will
yeah.
interfere, right?
Is this
Yeah.
a raised-
Just
Is
gonna
it a
be
raised bed?
sand or grass or what?
Through the chair, yes.
Yes.
It's existing like Cape Cod lawn.
Okay.
And we're proposed to put back a Cape Cod lawn.
Okay, thank you.
Because in the construction protocol number 11, it just says revegetated with lawn. So it wasn't clear what kind of a lawn you're talking about.
Yeah, it's a Cape Cod lawn. It's not fertilized. It's not irrigated. You know, I don't know how else to describe it. If the commission needs to add any conditions to the order of conditions, certainly.
No, I don't think
Oh,
we
I
do.
don't think so. No. Anybody else have anything to say or questions to ask? Otherwise, I'm going to propose that we accept this.
My name is Bonnie Neal and I own the 107 Somerset, and this is my husband, Rob.
Okay, and you are an abutter, I take it, or?
Yeah, we are butters and.
Okay.
Would like to be heard, if you would.
Please do.
For the present, I'm going to have Rob speak for both of us. We both discussed all we know.
I first want to say, I realize it's late. I'm not any more interested in prolonging our evening together than you are. You've been working at all of this a lot longer than we have. And I want to, at the outset, reinforce and commend Matt Farrell. He did spend considerable time on the phone with me this morning, and his office had earlier this week sent us all the materials that have been provided to you. That may be an obligation, but we certainly appreciate it and appreciate Matt's doing some explaining of what it is that we as professionals don't understand or don't purport to understand as well as you all do. I did raise with Matt, having reviewed the plans, some questions, and both these plans and his responses provide and provoke in us some concerns. I want to stress to you all, and certainly to Raul and Beth, that we want to be good neighbors. We're not opposed to and certainly support in principle their desire to build a residence that better suits them. We've been looking at this house as the next door neighbors for some decades, and certainly appreciate, as you do, that improvements to it make good sense. One thing though that I'll note is that there are a number of variances that are requested for the proposed waste disposal system. And some of them are very directly impacting our property. I know, among other things, that the SAS is set back from the common property line by only 2 feet, not the 10 or even arguably the 5 that I understand is the requirement. And that the moving of the waste disposal system to this side of the property is a whole lot closer to our well water resource. Indeed, it's adjacent as well to our septic system. The property that is in Bonnie's name is 2 lots, 113 Samoset and 107 Samoset. 107 is where the house is. 113 is not improved, except that our septic system is actually installed on it. So I suppose that's an improvement. And it's not too far from the proposed new septic system. Now, Matt did make mention that this septic design was presented about a year ago and was approved. I think it's fair to note that it was approved in the context of a repair to the existing structure, where the footprint is pretty established, and that defines that existing footprint defines the side yards. The structure is within the side yard setbacks on either side, just as a matter of building and zoning. And it's obviously prior non-conforming. And so trying to site on one side where the cesspool is now, or on the other side that is proximate to our property, a waste disposal system, is constricted by the existing structure. But as I'm understanding it, this is a removal of the existing structure. And so as a technical, and indeed I would say as a practical matter, I think it's in a different dimension. And I don't think that's something that's being recognized. I think it's pretty relevant. And when I asked Matt if there were any other sightings that were considered for this new system, he said this was the best one, but that and that it had already been approved. So to some extent, he was suggesting we're out of luck in raising any concerns about it. I'm not sure why that should be true, and I'd ask this commission.
Well, let me ask, what is your beef? I mean, what's your gripe? What is your issue with the placement of it?
Well, it's
within. Is it close to your well?
It's 2 feet from our property line, and I suppose you all can tell me whether or not all of the variances that are requested are perfectly normal and commonly granted.
Can I weigh in here because I think Matt was correct here in that that's not what's before us. They're not filing right now for the septic system. So they could come forth today, get their machine out there and put this septic system in the ground. So I I think we understand your concerns about the septic being close to the property line, but those variants have already been granted by the Board of Health and approved by this Conservation Commission. And the application before us is what we have to stay focused on, and that is for construction of the new dwelling and demolition of the existing dwelling. So we are going to slip on a slippery slope if we start going to look at things that have already been permitted and approved by the commission and the Board of Health. So that being said, where you might want to lodge these comments is at a Board of Health meeting when these folks come with their plans for their increase in habitable space or, you know, change in structure plans. So that's where those comments would be better served.
If it informs your determination, great. If it doesn't, that's obviously for you all to decide. I'll also note that while zoning is not your within your purview, this is a rather substantial and dramatic increase in both the footprint, which was mentioned, but also in the volume, the density of the property. And
that again is a zoning concern, sir, and we can't weigh in on that. So you want to maybe keep your comments focused to the 570 square feet. That is the increase in disturbance from what was existing versus what is proposed.
yeah, and if you will, the actual in one respect, the side yard setback for the new structure is less than it currently is. And you may say that's entirely a zoning issue, but I want to be sure and point it out to you. It's not explained to me why that is.
Yes, you do have some issues that you want to bring up, but you needed to bring them up to the people that have the power to change it. We aren't that people.
Sure.
So.
Well, this is fair enough. And I'm not certainly not suggesting that your jurisdiction is broader than it is. All fine. I thought it was appropriate at least to raise these issues. We haven't had a chance to speak to our neighbors until now. And so that is one reason I wanted to raise them. And I had to Matt, but I wanted to formally make the points.
Okay, point taken then. I made a proposal. I made a motion. Does anybody want to second it?
Yes.
All right. Benjamin, how do you feel about this?
Wait a minute, wait a minute, Leon.
Yes, sir.
This includes the conditions about the shower and about not having any sort of a fertilized lawn.
Yep,
Yes.
I have those.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for keeping me on the straight and narrow there, Mike. Okay, so Ben, you already voted. Marty?
Yes.
And Marty?
Yes.
Barbara? You're muted, Barbara. Okay, she says yes. Mike, how do you go?
Yes.
And I also vote. I like this plan. It's, I mean, it may have other issues, but this is a very tiny lot in a very crowded neighborhood. So that being said, I think you've done everything you can to protect the environment, and that's what we're concerned with.
Thank you very much.
We need a supervisor for this. Maybe because there's a septic involved, we give it to the department.
I might drive off a cliff.
Well, no danger here. There's not really much of a cliff.
Okay, all right. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, see, you need to get that other person there, Hillary. Then you can
guys
just
want me driving that truck.
delegate. Oh, that's fun. All right.
Okay,
So that's form
order of
5.
conditions.
Form 5.
Mr. Neela, Mr. and Mrs. Neela, I would suggest that you work with your complaints or your issues and concerns ought to be talked about with your new neighbor. However that may fall, but I'm just saying that it's beyond us to do anything about that. And these are going to be your neighbors. Okay, so where are we? That was approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening. Finally. Glen Mullen, 130 Chesapeake Knolls Drive, map 12, parcel 65. AOOC, what's that? I'm not sure what that is.
Amended order of conditions.
Oh, add additional decking,
Yep.
right. So who's representing that?
David LaJoy.
Good evening again, Dave LaJoy.
Okay, David.
We had an approval for the new screen porch on the southwest corner of the building, conditioned with dismantling part of the deck in the northeast corner.
Mm-hmm.
They're labeled, it's labeled number 9 on the plan. After reviewing it, you should have a letter from the owner. Do you all have that?
Yes.
Describing the problems with removing that part of the deck due to the existing sliding door, window, etc. So in lieu of removing the deck, we'd like to offer more plantings, up to 800 or 1,000 square foot, I believe she says in the letter. And we want to know if that's acceptable to the commission. Does everyone remember where this is?
Yeah,
We
yeah,
were out
we were
there
there
today,
this morning.
Right, thank you.
And we stood underneath the deck. It's not going to be replaced. I'm just trying to recollect how much, this is a very steep cliff here, but this is right on the edge of. And I was just trying to recall how much vegetation there is on that cliff, because it's very steep.
It's pretty well vegetated, although quite a bit of it's invasive. So that's the idea of her proposing more native plantings, increasing the square footage from what was previously required instead of removing the deck.
So
I
the
don't
30
think that, go ahead,
square-
I'm sorry.
No, I'm just looking for where the 32 square feet were.
The 32 square feet would be the most we could remove, still leaving 4 feet out from the slider and 4 feet from the window on that easterly side, and still be able to get access around the back of the building. I don't see where removal of the decking has much of an impact on the resource areas where additional plantings would.
Well, the real issue was trying to accommodate the fact that you're putting in a new porch and that you're already exceeding the square footage for that area. That was the
Yes,
problem.
but we discussed that at the initial meeting, and the trade-off at that point was 400 square feet of plantings and removal of the portion of the deck.
Right.
So in lieu of replacing the deck, additional plantings are proposed. The deck's been, the porch has been approved.
Correct.
Did you have a planting plan before?
Yes.
Do you have a copy of that that shows a new planting?
So if you look at the plan, Leon, number 8, the cloud of number 8 shows plant disturbed areas with 400 square feet of native plants such as arrowwood, beech plum, winterberry, black chokeberry, bayberry. And
Okay, all right. So where would is that the proposed?
Number 10 is the additional 200
Okay,
square feet. of
okay,
plants.
thank you.
Sure thing.
I can't even see the 10. Where's the 10 at?
10 is to the right of the dwelling, to the east.
Okay, oh yeah, got it. That actually would be pretty nice. Well, I guess my concern is, if I were living there, is that living on the edge of a cliff is seriously scary.
Well, as has been pointed out in the past, this is in fact a legally a bank, but it doesn't serve really as a source for sediment at all, because
No, it doesn't.
Road is below it.
Exactly.
So I think we want to certainly avoid erosion of that bank, but I don't think that we have to think of it in the same way as we would if it were down to the ocean.
Exactly. We've seen this kind of thing before with flood zones and things like that too. What's the commission's thoughts on this? I don't feel strongly. I know that John brought up the amelioration for the square footage of the porch by removing part of the old decking, but I guess I feel fairly, I don't really value that much. But I also don't know how much plantings in number 10 there is going to do anything for anybody, but I guess I'm just getting tired tonight.
Well, but think about it, because the deck, I know we don't want to talk about the deck and the sun porch, but where that property is, it is on the edge of the coastal bank. I think the plantings are good, and I'm not sure how much more we're getting back by having them remove a section of deck.
Yeah,
And the porch
really
is
nothing.
on, what is it on sonotubes, David? What is it on? Or did we go to the diamond piers?
The new deck would be, yes, on the diamond piers.
On the diamond piers. So the disturbance is minimal.
Yeah.
I know our regulations say we're not going to allow more destruction within the 50, but we can grant a variance, and here we are.
Yeah, it struck me that the removing the piece of deck seemed almost punitive, just to make the numbers work.
I'm sorry, Hillary. Excuse me for one second. Yeah, I misspoke. They're on helical piles.
Okay, yeah, same
not the
difference.
diamonds.
That's fine. That's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, those are the ones that screw in.
Yes, sir.
I don't have any strong feelings about it. I don't know the value of planting in number 10 would be, but couldn't hurt. But I don't have any real issues with this, I guess. I could just see removing or modifying the condition to just not to remove the to not modify the existing deck. But that's just me. How do you feel about it, Benjamin?
Normally I like to see quantities of plants rather than square footage, but I'll leave that to Hillary's working with him.
Do you think well, I think that plantings would be nice there, as I recall. It was just kind of a scrappy area there. I guess I'm for the suggestion of changing the condition from removing that piece of deck to adding more plantings. I don't really see how we can do much else right now. I mean, it's such a small lot and it's totally within the 50, so.
Well, I think the problem was whether this will be an issue of moral hazard, where the rules say that you really can't do it, but in this case, we would be putting in an exception to the rules. I would tend to support Leon in this and simply make sure that it doesn't become a precedent for future cases.
Yeah, this is in a low velocity area. There's no waves going to hit that. but it is a steep cliff and there's safety issues there, but I don't see that this modification is going to cause any danger. So I propose that we, how do we do this? Is this an RDA or is this just a?
No, it's
This is an amended order, so you can issue an order of conditions. Our conditions are gonna stay the same, which we didn't really have too many. And we're gonna add a condition that a detailed planting plan to be submitted for
Okay.
review.
And that'll take care of not removing the deck?
Yes, correct.
Okay. I think that that's what I proposed. I move that we accept that with those conditions. And I think a planting plan would be good to know what's going in there. Other than that, I think I would suggest that, let me get the right things here. One, that the AOOC for Glen Mullen 130 Quessett Knolls Drive, map 12, parcel 65 be approved.
Second that.
Second.
Okay. Ben, how do you vote? Before we
What,
go,
Hillary?
I was just gonna ask if we remembered who the supervisor was, but I don't need to know that right now. Go ahead and vote. I'm sorry.
Okay, Ben, go ahead.
Yes.
Yes, Marty,
Yes.
Barbara,
I'm going to abstain. I was not here when this project was originally reviewed and I would not have voted in favor of it. So I'm gonna just abstain from.
okay,
voting.
understood. And I'll vote yes as well. This was a very long discussion, as I recall, when it first came up.
Leon, I have to
Yeah.
vote. I have to vote, and I say yes.
I'm sorry, Michael. And you vote yes?
Yes, that makes 4.
Okay, we scraped together 4. So,
Thank you. Thank you. Good night.
Good
good
night.
night.
So this is Form 5 as well?
Yes,
Yeah,
that's
that's-
Form 5,
This is just
Yes,
a regular, okay.
just regular.
Okay,
AOC was on the, no.
Yep.
A-
Amended order of conditions.
yeah, well, if it was AOC, then we would think that it was a representative from New York, so. If the of didn't get its own letter. Okay. Does anybody else have anything before we leave tonight? Okay, I move that we adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Okay, Benjamin, how do you feel about that?
Yes.
Matt, Marty,
Yes.
Barbara,
Yes.
Cole,
Yes.
and I also vote yes. So thanks, everybody. This was a toughie. We skated a couple of times, but